This is the Erin Cruz Show. Politics for the people and by the people. With your host, Erin Cruz.
Hello and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. Tonight we have a phenomenal lineup. But right now we have our first guest. She is amazing, but all of our guests are amazing because mostly they're patriots, activists, or they're patriots, activists, and as our next guest is running for Congress. Lots of candidates here on the Erin Cruz Show. Candidate connection, patriot connection. The only way we're going to bring our country back to a space of being operational, functional, is if we unite people. But this next guest is very special to my heart. She's actually lives within my county. Her name is Aja Smith, and I'm going to read you. She has a strong background. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about it. But I'm going to give you a bit I got off of her website, a little bit of bio on her, okay? And I don't want to miss anything. And I'm sure she'll be very outspoken and tell me if I did miss something and share with you as much as she can. But Aja Smith, she's dedicated her career to serving her country. She's a veteran, folks. Yes, she is. She's a veteran living and working. Living and working. And I say that "and" in bold font, okay? Living and working in the 41st District, where she is looking to get elected to Congress as a member of the United States House of Representatives. Aja grew up in Moreno Valley, California, and she was raised by both her mother and her grandmother. Loving women. I've met them, just phenomenal people. They both worked long hours as nurses, providing for Aja and ensuring she had every opportunity that her peers had. Both of Aja's grandparents served in the U.S. military. She has a military family, everybody. Her grandfather was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Her great uncle, wow, he was a pilot. It just, my family, I have pilots in my family, and what they went through, I mean, it's just unbelievable. In 2002, Aja joined the United States Air Force Reserve, and in 2007, she was deployed to Qatar. Today, Aja is a federal employee at March Air Force Base, Reserve Base, I'll correct that, and she's in information technology, and she's located, again, she lives and works in the 41st District. Thank you for being on the Erin Cruz Show. Aja, we are so glad to have you. It's refreshing to have everybody on my show like you who just, they see it, they feel it, they know it. They're real folks. They're patriots. They're in many cases veterans. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for running for Congress.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm telling everybody, Erin should have made top 2 for our Senate in California. And I know, Erin, your time is going to come very soon, and I have your back, and we're going to make sure you become our next senator here in California. And thank you so much again for inviting me on your show.
Absolutely. What I would like to do is, yes, I am running for U.S. Senate again. I'm going to run for Kamala Harris' seat. We have 4 years to build that bridge, girl.
Yes.
And like you and I talked about in our pre-interview, I mean, really, this is a connective effort. This is about people. This is about connecting the community, but it's also about money. And and you know, it's a big picture. And California is rough, and the people are just getting over 8 years of an Obama economy.
Oh yes, and we've suffered not only in California but the nation. And I tell everybody that we have to keep the House in the Senate.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, everything that our president, Donald Trump, has worked for with tax reform, jobs, everything, national defense, building up the military, if we do not keep the House in the Senate, it will all be gone. And right now, as anybody who lives in California and those who see it online, California, we are the last state. We are the state where we have to make it work. We have to elect a Republican governor, Senate, House reps. We have to do it because the taxes are extremely high still here in California. The homeless rate is growing here in California. But we have to make sure we elect people like myself, Bill Asaley, Ali Mazari, Erin Cruz in 4 years. We could make this work. California, I was born and raised in California. It's the Golden State.
It is the Golden State.
It is the Golden State, but right now we have Gavin Newsom and John Cox running for governor. We cannot have Gavin Newsom as our next governor.
Do you know, I'm working. I want to get John Cox on our show.
Good.
We need to have him speak to the people, not Fox News, not through any of these conglomerates. We really need people to get him in front of the populace and work hard to help him get out his voice. And it's a team effort. It's all of our Republican candidates, fiscally conservative candidates. It's so important. It's so important. So now tell me about you, though. Your race, you're in Moreno Valley. You're in you're running for the 41st district, Riverside County, and you've lived there, you've worked there. How are the people seeing this race from their perspective?
I have mixed feelings with people. Everybody's excited that I'm running, but I need more name recognition. And in the primary, I'm a Christian. It was by the grace of God. I made it through the primary with good numbers. Don't look at the percentage. I'm only 13,000 votes between me and my opponent, Mark Takano. So we can make this district red again. It used to be a Republican district. We used to have thriving business and conservative. It was a great family district, and Mark Takano came. It just went downhill. And I'm telling everybody, I need all the support that I can. Everything that will help to get my name out with signs, yard signs, mailers, everything. People said, if you just had a little bit more extra, you would have got much closer to gap.
That extra is big money, okay? That extra is not just, I mean, all of us together with $5. This is what I said. Everybody $1, everybody $5, all that. It all adds up. But in the scheme of things, it's going to get to the point where, people want yard signs. Do you have downloadables that people can take them to Staples and make their own? Because, this is the deal, is like, we have to be innovative. And all of this costs money. So there are a couple options. People can contribute to the campaign, and the campaign can furnish it. Or they can be innovative, and they can come up with people did it with Donald Trump, right?
Yes,
they did. They went out and they just went crazy. They did their own thing. One of the interesting things about Donald Trump is he didn't beat down on people when they made their own "Make America Great Again" hats. He just was like, go for it, And so this is the deal with you and your campaign is, we need grassroots. We need people to step up. You have your hands full. We need people to come around you and help you. It's time, talent, or treasure. You need all three. You need all three.
And I tell people every day, just to do what I had on my little budget. I said, now is the time. We have to put our boots on, and we're going to have a good ground game, because Mark Takano is going to outraise me. But the message, the heart of the message to get out to the district with the working class families, the single parents, gases, we have to vote yes on 6 for Carl DeMaio, because the gas tax is killing everybody. It cost me $50 just to fill up my tank. And I'm a working class person. I'm not a rich person.
Well, that's one way we can get people out to the polls, right?
Yes.
Because that's part of it. It's not just, getting your name out there. Yes, that's part of it. But it's also getting people to the polls, because getting your name out there doesn't help unless the people vote for you. So part of that is getting out the information on the gas tax. People of Moreno Valley, if you're commuting to work because you live in a nicer neighborhood that might be a little bit further away to work or what have you, and you're eating up all that extra cash in your gas tank, blown right out the tailpipe. If you want to see the gas tax removed, make sure you get out to vote for Aja Smith, and make sure you get out to vote on the gas tax measure. I think that's part of it.
Because a lot of people don't know all of these taxes, they add up, food prices, everything. And we have to get out to vote, not only as Republicans, but the independents and the declined states. You have to get out and vote November. I even have some Democrats who came to me and said, we voted for you because we loved your message. And I said, thank you so much, because they said they were sick of their own party politics as well. They want to live the American dream.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is, I don't know what happened.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
I can see you.
there we go. I think we're back.
Okay.
We're back. Okay, it's a good thing this is recorded, right?
Okay.
Pause. So, okay, so yes, I think it's important. The independents, the libertarians, and even the Democrats, the walk away people who are not liberal, leftist, progressive,
far left, socialist, everything.
They are hardworking people, right?
They are.
Just like it doesn't matter if you have a D or an R. If you're hardworking and you want to see government spend your money wisely, you need to vote for Aja. So now, so now you're doing a bid to go into the United States House of Representatives.
Yes, I am.
And you know, what do you see as your top 3 initiatives when you get in there? When you walk in those doors, what are the kinds of legislation that you would like to see passed?
Well, you mentioned a good thing. I am a United States Air Force Reserve veteran, and a lot of people, when they think of the military, they only think of active duty. I was a reservist, and it was a lot of things within the reserve program that I feel and it should change, especially when it comes to retirement. And a lot of people don't think that when you're active duty, you spend 20 years in the military, you get your check the next month. But guess what? When you're a reservist, you don't get your check till you're 60 years old. And I have a lot of friends, and I even have one special dear friend of mine who was homeless for 3 years because he was not 60 years old, and he did 30 years of service. 30 years.
So you see reform, you see pension or retirement reform for veterans be refined.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't see that. We need a lot of reform in Veterans Administration with health care, PTSD treatment, our homeless veterans. I want to make it happen. I am not the problem. I want to fix the problem and be the solution, because I have friends who suffered. I have friends who committed suicide. I want to see more programs and more reform on veteran suicide. I've had at least 5 friends who died. And
we need to start putting America first, our citizens first.
Yes.
And our veterans and our homeless. I mean, all of these things need to be addressed, you know, top priority. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
There's a lot of things that we can do more and more for our veterans, but we have to make sure that we elect people who care, such as I do, veterans who understand. Mark DeConnell has no clue when it comes to veterans issues. He really doesn't. And we also need to make sure that our taxes are low so we can support the small businesses. We have a lot of great small businesses in my district, and I see people, the food prices are going up, there's less workers, so we need to bring that quality of life back to give younger people an incentive to be small business owners as well, because the low tax incentives, the less regulation, we can have great and better entrepreneurship in my district.
Right, agreed wholeheartedly. And especially in your district, I think, going back to the gas taxes and some of the regulatory reform, you know, anytime it costs more to ship something, to bring something in, to import something even from the coast, you know, I was running for U.S. Senate to bring something from the coast into your district. All of these things have costs, and most of them are guarded by regulations, and it does drive costs up. But for the small businesses, there's regulations on a federal level. They need cut. We need entrepreneurship, and wouldn't it be great if if the younger generation had that opportunity and were able to seize it and, you know, and take advantage?
And another thing I like to bring to promote in my district is STEM. A lot of people are not college bound, and I met people who were not college bound, but they want to learn trade, and we need to bring back the trades into schools, because a lot of the younger people are going to the universities, spending a lot of money, and they get out and graduate, they cannot get a job. But if we can offer a trade program, they can have a great apprenticeships and where they can start their own business, such as electrician, air conditioning, mechanics, different things like that. And we can start showing them everything that you're learning. I'll use Berkeley as an example with the Antifa and everything. No, that's not how the real world works.
Right, and that doesn't put food on your table.
What's going to put food on your table is going to make you a better productive citizen instead of calling everybody a Nazi and a fascist. Let's bring it back and start bringing in trade into the schools, into the junior colleges, and I went to
and
junior
even
college.
in the high schools. I mean,
Yeah, in the high schools.
What I would like to see is that I would like to see, and I don't know what you think about this, but I would like to see on a federal level them address. You know, I don't like the Department of Education. Okay, I think it's redundant and a waste. But what I would like to see is on a federal level, have them look at what programs should be in our schools. I mean, if they're going to be looking at that, they should be looking at that and saying on a very practical shell level, gosh, the auto programs were wonderful.
Yes.
Auto mechanics, you know, computer tech programs,
Yes.
Other kinds of things. Getting high school minded people, they may not be, you know, a mathematician or a chemist or, you know, they may have other jobs. All jobs are good jobs. It's
And they're
good
all
work. It's good work,
And
but we have to get it in there. And maybe that's something that you can also work on. You said STEM, that's a priority.
And the STEM is a priority because we have a lot of technology interventions coming in, and a lot of people are not qualified to get those jobs. Logistics, especially my district, is going to be a hot commodity pretty soon. And so we have a lot of people, a lot of young people that are not trained to work in those types of industries. And I'm running against a congressman who is a teacher or a former teacher. Nobody knows when was the last time he taught. He's not talking about these things, you know, and everything. I'm not knocking every profession, and I'm not knocking any type of industry, but he just went in there, and especially with the new administration, is all bashing the president. I went to one of his town hall meetings about two and a half weeks ago about immigration. Everything was bashing the president instead of him saying, here is how we solve the problem. There was no problem.
I mean, he doesn't have to agree, right? He can say, this is the issue. This is what we see the president doing. This is my agenda. It doesn't have to be all bash, bash, bash. So your perspective, I'm hearing, is you're gonna look at this very pragmatically and say, we have problems. This is the solution. Solve them. Yeah. It's as easy as that. I mean, the details, of course, need ironed in each case, but I think that's it, is people are wasting our time and money on an agenda rather than actually looking to serve their populace, which in your area, I did read that there are a lot of blue-collar workers, and there are also a lot of individuals who work on the base, as well as corporations or companies, mom and pop businesses that feed the base, basically, right? They work hand in hand. You know, these sorts of individuals work hard for their money. I would think that they would want to support somebody like you that's going to safeguard and look to their better interest. And they're smart people, right?
There's a lot of smart people out here. We do have a high blue-collar district. And I also want to bring white-collar opportunities for the younger generation, especially the medical field. My mother and grandmother, retired nurses. It's great, but we need to start bringing in more of those opportunities to the younger people, and also people, you know, in the midlife who want to do a new career field. Start bringing those types of opportunities, whether it be hospital administration, records management, so we can have a thriving city. Another one big thing that I push for is national security, national defense. And I went to the border last year and I saw the issues that we have. And I do support our Border Patrol men and women because they put their lives in danger.
Every day.
They do, every single day. And they need a lot of help.
And even when they go home.
Yes.
Even when they leave their job, just by default, what they do for a living.
Yes.
They're putting, especially with the climate such as it is, they're risking their lives every day for us.
And they have a lot of stress, Erin. I've known people who told me stories. They do have a suicide rate within their own department. We also have a great police force out here, Riverside Sheriffs, and they put their lives every day, and we need to support them.
We do, absolutely. So now, as far as back to, I want to kind of take you back to, before we go on to the law enforcement, because I really want to talk about law enforcement.
Yes.
You know, but back to the border and national security and the Border Patrol. Do you support our president on his America First policy, and what do you see is needing to be done in the United States Congress to help the National Security Initiative as it relates to immigration and the border?
Well, I do have a background for many years in security management. I know anti-terrorism, OPSEC, everything, and I know those issues. What a lot of people don't realize, you can have one person that's coming from a terror sponsor state such as Iran or Saudi Arabia that will come over here in that crowd that we've seen so many times. And we saw what happened with 9/11. It only took a few.
It only takes one bad seed.
It only takes one, and that's all you need. So we do need to have better screening, better vetting, but it is hard. But the problem with our border is that we need to also hire more Border Patrol agents as well.
Yes, I agree.
And that's the problem too. And they need more federal funding for that issue. And just talking to the people down there that were working, and my great hosts, they also have a sewage problem that's coming over from Mexico to California, Imperial Beach. We need to work on that because a lot of our agents are going into that sewage and that waste, and they're getting all kinds of scars and burns and being exposed to
major health and environmental issue. Now, I know somebody else who's running for Congress. It's Juan Hidalgo. He's running for the 51st District.
Okay.
And it's the most southern part, the most southern region. That's in his district, that sewage. And he also has gone down there. And you both are saying the same thing. And I hear candidate after candidate after candidate talk about this. I hear people concerned about this. I hear, just so much about this. And yet little is being done. And so I think what most people want to know is, one, what are you going to do? And two, can they hold you accountable? And I think that, and for what I know about you, you're a woman of your word, a person of your word. And people can count on you and stand behind you and expect you to help find solutions. And then, you know what? If the Congress, if the current Congress and other people aren't actually working for the American people, we're going to need you to speak out about that and support Donald Trump and that initiative, because the reality is this: a lot of people, I believe, aren't doing their jobs. Right. And we want people like you we can trust to go in there and do the good hard work. And it's going to be an uphill battle, though, I think, to get what you want, the funding and some of that cleanup. And
it's going to be an uphill battle, but when we start exposing the truth, I have video, I have pictures. It is alive and well. What I always wonder, why does Jerry Brown charges us 10 cents per bag, but we're getting sewage waste over here? They're trying to ban straws. That's the hypocrisy that needs to be questioned and thrown out there. And start asking them, saying, you want all these environmental impacts that hinder businesses, but then you have sewage coming over here to California. You're doing nothing about it. So that's the hypocrisy that needs to be exposed. And I tell people it is an uphill battle, especially going to the United States House, but at the same time, you have to go by the Constitution.
Absolutely.
I tell people there's limits what I can do versus state versus local, but we can all work together. But constitutionally, that's what I signed up to defend until I die, is the United States Constitution, to save our republic.
And you also, when you became a candidate for the House of Representatives, you took an oath.
Yes.
You took an oath. Many people don't know that you actually, when you become a candidate, yes, you took an oath when you served, or in other jobs maybe where you had some sort of a classification, you might have had to take an oath.
Right.
But when you run for office, you take an oath. And not only did you take an oath for the United States Constitution, Aja, but I'm sure you probably remember, you also took an oath to the California Constitution.
Yes.
And people need to understand that the individuals who are running for office, who are progressive left, or incumbents, like in your case in the 41st District, they're not upholding their oaths.
No, they're not.
And it is serious. As a candidate, even, you have that oath. So even more so.
And I was at Mark Takano's immigration town hall meeting, which was a complete joke. But somebody
It's not a joke. It's a horror.
It is.
I'm going to just say it. These people are horrific, Aja. You don't have to say it. I will say it. These people are traitors. okay, and they're defying their oath, and we need people like you who will respect the United States Constitution and will honor their oath.
Yes, and he did get called out. He said,
he did.
Said you took an oath to defend the United States Constitution. He says, of course I did. And they said, well, you oppose the Second Amendment. You want to take away our guns. You want to suppress free speech. And he's like, oh, no, I don't. And I'm sitting there just saying, this is a joke. You do not like our constitutional freedoms. And that's where people need to go get a pocket constitution and carry it. I carry mine everywhere that I go.
I have mine in my purse. Yes. Amen, girl. Amen. I completely love it. And when people go off, I just open it.
Oh, I said, well, here's the Constitution. And I tell people, I tell them, let me see. Hope I didn't take everything out of my purse already, because I switch purses. But
you're a busy woman. We won't expect you to know which purse you used today.
Okay. I tell people, as a House of Representatives, you make law. You determine and you implement the law. And that's where a lot of the people like Mark Takano, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, they haven't placed a bill since they've been in office. I think maybe Maxine, maybe 1 or 2 bills. Mark Takano, I haven't heard a bill that even significant.
A lot of them co-sponsor.
Yeah, they co-sponsor.
So some lobbyists. This is how it works. Some lobbyist writes it, pretty much. Some lobbyist or group writes it because they say, "Oh, we want to do this. This is the agenda." Some lobbyist comes up with it. I mean, who else comes up with a stack this big? You know, when they're always busy on CNN, these Congress persons. Yeah, right. So they come up with these bills this big that a lobbyist wrote, and then they push it. And I think they all co-sponsor it. And good Lord, this is why we're in the situation we're in. And Mark
they don't know their job.
They're talking heads. We need you in there doing your job for the good people of the 41st District who work very hard in their jobs. This is serious business, and you take it seriously, and I love that. And Mark Takano, it sounds like he's just a talking head, and we don't need talking heads anymore.
No, we don't. We need people to go there and work.
No more of this and this.
Stop working.
And a lot more of this and this.
Exactly, and that's what they need to do. I see that on TV. I see it on TV now, and I said, how can you still elect this type of person? And they said, well, they're doing a great job, and I said, no, they're not. Look at their voting record.
Well, I think part of it is people don't realize what they're doing. It's so. The things they legislate in many ways are extreme, but they're subtle in other ways. And so over time, even what Obama did, most of his legislation under his, even though we can talk about the structure of who he worked with while he was in office, but over time, the policies that went through, most of them didn't take effect until like 2014, 2015, 2016. Exactly. So, I think it's difficult because, it's all so subtle. But the reality is this: we're in deep trouble as Americans. And, we do need people like you in office to make the tough choices. So now, I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe you have an answer. So you're for strong border infrastructure. You're for supporting the president and protecting and defending the Constitution. Where do you stand on law enforcement? Now I know that's maybe a state issue, and so that's not really part of your umbrella. But we have some issues as it relates to the state. We have the federal level, which is now conflicting with the state level, right? And ICE and everything else. And, people are concerned. It doesn't matter if you live in California, Arizona, Texas, or what have you. National security is national security. And ICE needs to be able to do their job. So where do you stand on in that big picture?
I support ICE. I support the Homeland Security. I support everything that's under the Department of Homeland Security. We have it for a reason. And I tell people, it may sound like they're bullies, but they do go and get those who are criminals and they deport them. They're not the Gestapo. They're not the brown shirts, because I can go on and on about that.
We can go look at other third world countries and other countries abroad and see what that really looks like, and we can look at history and know what that looks like.
It really looks
it's
like
not what ICE is.
But our men and women who are in those agencies, including the federal marshals and everybody else, they have a tough job. And I support them all the way. To abolish an agency because you just don't like them, well, I don't like a lot of things, but I'm not trying to abolish it, or I'm not trying to get rid of it. And I tell people, you have to realize we are in a different time when it comes to national security. We have a lot of enemies within and a lot of enemies that are trying to come here and bring our republic down. And I keep stressing republic. And the reason why I keep stressing republic, because we live underneath a constitutional republic. The Democrats, the far left, the progressives, and the socialists want us to be full democracy. And we know that mob rules fails. We've seen that in history. And I tell people that I'm very strong on those two distinctions. But when it's
important to make the distinction, because the media is trying to do away with the distinction. As a matter of fact, they're promoting that there is no distinction.
There is a distinction, and I tell people, you have to understand the Constitution. I'm very hard on the Constitution. Now, when it comes to states' rights and federal and local, yes, there's a separation of powers. But at the same time, when it comes to the federal level, what happened with, I forgot what agency it was, and I'm sorry, I had a long day. It was 108 degrees today, but I made it through.
It's 122 here, I think.
Oh my God. Okay, you need to come move where I live. Cut down some
come and become a constituent of Asha's district.
There, come and move. You can move right in with me. My grandmother and my mother, they love you. So,
Aww, I love them too. So
they love you. But when it comes to the federal agencies, what's next? I always tell people, what's next? The military? What's next?
I believe that is what they want to do. They
want to demilitarize the country. What do you want? So the problem is you have so many people who don't want to adhere to the law, so they want to get rid of the law. And we cannot do that. Otherwise, our country will fall. And we've seen that. We've been warned.
Right. And our founders, I believe.
I support all of our agents. I've met a couple of those agents throughout my career and for a very long time, and they have the toughest job. Border Patrol, custom agents. I said, I did apply. I remember a couple of years ago, I did apply to be a customs agent, a Border Patrol agent, but I couldn't even pass. It's a tough job. They work long hours, and they have families as well, and they need respect as well. And I tell people we need to support these people because they are protecting us from adversaries that are here to harm us.
Here. On our soil.
Yes.
Our soil. Yes. Not their soil. Our soil. We're only defending what is ours. We're a sovereign nation. Right? And I think that's important, an important thing you mentioned, because people just are killing the idea that this is our nation, the idea of open borders, and then now they want to dismantle ICE. They're harsh, and this is not nice, and that is not nice. Look, the world is not nice.
No, it's not.
Look outside of our borders. There are a lot of nations that are suffering. Many people want to come here.
And to get away from the suffrage and live the American dream.
And the only way we protect it.
But at the same time, they're coming here, whether you're legally or illegally, and they're being brainwashed that the far left is the party for them, and they're not. They're trying to get away from, I met people who were immigrants. They said, we came here. I don't know, some of them. Then they said, we thought the Democratic Party were for us until they started researching and realizing, said, no, they're not for us. So they switched to Republican. And they said, we thought by coming here, the Democrat Party were for the minorities, the small business owners, and come to find out they weren't.
It's messaging. It has nothing to do with policy and everything to do with messaging. And you're so right there, Aja. Yes, what I like to do is I like to tell people that family values, our Hispanic values, our XYZ family values are integral to many different cultures, right?
Yes.
Those are Republican values.
Yes. Very conservative, hard work, go to school, do the best and thrive the best you can.
It's that simple. Let people work, let them live their lives, and government has its place. And I think you believe that too, right? So what I'm hearing is that you support our military, you support our law enforcement, you support ICE, you support strong national security initiatives, you want less government.
Yes, I do.
Easing off on regulations, smart regulations, and you said earlier lowering tax. Where do you stand on adjusting or making further adjustments to President Donald Trump's tax reform? I know they did some, but he said himself that he didn't have enough support to be able to do everything he wanted to do as far as tax reform. I'm in favor.
You know, I do lean on this. I may gain votes or may lose votes. I don't know. But I do lean on we should try a flat tax. And eventually, as Rand Paul and his father always said, the income tax is illegal, to get rid of it. But that's going to take years to come. We can't do everything overnight because it would be too much.
Nothing can be done overnight. You're right.
Overnight. But I said we can try a flat tax. And I believe Herman Cain ran on that before, and a couple other candidates. And I know Rand Paul ran on that before as well.
Donald Trump talked about many different ways that he would have liked to see tax reform happen. I think the biggest thing that Donald Trump and I got as a constituent of his was that he basically wanted to ease the tax on Americans, and we had to do something. So and now what he did was he took the first step, right? So now we have to take one more. My thing as a constituent, and I'm not in your 41st district, but many people in your district might think this way too, is that the government should be, if it's going to be there, it should be working for the people. And if it can ease a tax burden and ease regulation and streamline to eliminate itself, so to speak, but it should be doing that, right? It should be working for the people. The people shouldn't be working to support it. So,
well, the federal government, that is the role. It's not to hinder people. It is to make sure that our rights are protected. And that's where a lot of people are getting confused when it comes to federal government. And that's where I get it. And that's where I want to run and be part of the process and make sure that my constituents and the people who don't even like me, I can tell them this is the role of the federal government, is to protect our rights that are given to us by God, and to protect our rights that were written, and to give us the powers to be, because it's we the people. It's not me the politician, it's not even the president. I'm looking down on you because we don't have a monarch anymore. That's why we don't even have a monarch. We have a
representative republic, right?
Representative republic, and that's the problem now. With you talked about the Department of Education. It's not being taught in schools about this anymore. Luckily, when I went to school, we were taught this. Right. But now I ask younger people, they don't even know this. They think everything is the president's fault or the federal government. They're not talking or teaching the separation of powers anymore. And that's
we have to get back to the basics.
Oh yeah, we have to go back to civics. We have to go back to basics. And that's why we have the issues that we see right now. Even people my age, I was shocked. I see on Facebook, on Twitter, and I'm like, well, how old are you? And some people are a little bit older than me, and they said, well, no, everything is federal government. I said, no, it's not. Yeah. The federal government is to protect our Constitution rights, and that's it. But less taxes, a free market. I am a free market person. I am an admirer of Milton Friedman because I am a business major as well, and I know economics. And once we have a free market, healthcare or any type of other industry, the costs will become lower. But I do support the president. He's looking to pass that to buy healthcare insurance across state lines, and we will see a difference in that.
And tort reform? Do you support tort reform? You know,
yes, I do.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yes. So are you for repealing Obamacare completely?
Yes, and it should be free market.
Free market.
It should be free market. People don't understand. California, we're one of those few states that we have multiple insurance carriers. We don't have one, but the state of California is really trying to do universal health care. We're trying to be the experiment state. We're the experiment state for everything, as everybody knows and sees on
And
TV.
by the way, just because we want to do a blip for that socialized health care, that Medicare for all, or whatever you want to call it, that for California, they say some estimates, they say that if they enact that it's almost a flat, and it depends on who you look at, 2 to 2.5 to 4% tax on every single person here.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but there's a lot of people that can't afford 4%.
No.
2%. 1%. And we know government, it always costs triple what they end up saying. And you know, it's all a big lie. And I think that you said it right. California is always the experiment state. Well, you know what? We don't want to be experimented on. We know capitalism works. Free market is where it's at. And I'm so glad to hear that you are a strong voice, Aja, because when you're in the United States House of Representatives, you may not be able to, act on state level legislation. Obviously,
but
you're not. It's federal, state.
A voice on it.
But you have a voice. And I've seen Maxine Waters, I've seen Nancy Pelosi, I've seen your guy, I've seen so many, Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris, who I'm now running against. I've seen these people all talk about state issues and basically want to usher in socialism on the California people. They're a federal person. Yes. You can have that same voice. And actually, I wanted to ask you one more thing, because I did see this all through the state, is when Donald Trump passed his tax reform on a partisan line. By the way, no Democrats voted for that, okay? Right. Republicans voted for that. Your guy, what is Debono, right?
Debono.
He did not vote for tax reform. He voted that the federal government should be able to keep more of your potential constituents' money, period. He did not vote to support Donald Trump or tax reduction or reform. But these people come out and chastise Trump. They can be a loud voice to help influence California to marry their taxes and their tax reform to the federal government. There's no reason why the state shouldn't adjust its tax after the federal adjusts its tax to be able to suit for a good plan for the American public. And that's something that you can talk about, and you'll have a voice. And that voice is so important. And I know you are already a strong voice, and so I know that you'll advocate for your constituency all the way across the board. But I have one more question. Do you have time for one more question?
Oh, I have all the time. I'm just sitting here.
Okay, because there's so much I want to ask you. And we're going to actually have you on the show. For people who are just now joining us, this is Aja Smith. She is running for the 41st Congressional District. That's in Moreno Valley in Riverside County. She is an amazing woman. She's a veteran. She's a patriot. She's a daughter. She's just a brilliant woman. And boy, she has ideas, and she supports our president. She supports law enforcement. All of these things is wonderful. But I would like to know, very quite honestly, where you stand. And I hope you don't, it's a hot topic issue, where you stand on the tariffs and some of the things that are happening, with Donald Trump, and everything. A lot of the all of the financial bills start in the House of Representatives.
Yes, they do.
So that's really important. I would like to know where you stand on this.
I've been following the president when he was the real estate billionaire for a very long time.
He knows his stuff.
He knows he is the master of deals.
Didn't he write a book about that?
Huh?
He wrote a book about that, right?
The Art of the Deal. And for a very long time, I followed him, and I said, I want to be like him. This guy can really make some deals, and he can move and shake. But what a lot of people don't understand, we have a president that is a master deal maker. And he spoke today and said it was billions of dollars that were stripped away from us, that did not come back to this country. Now here we are as citizens, regardless of party. We complain about the roads. We complain about there's not enough resources or money for programs or here and there, whatever pet program or whatever tea program.
Yeah, regardless of DR or anything else.
Anything, because we always talk about funding. Now the president just said today he was at an event, and I forgot what state he was at, and he was talking. He said it was billions that we missed out on for so many years that we can have back in this country, so we can have more money, so we can fund the roads and fund whatever project. Well, we'll hash out the projects. To me, it should be infrastructure and transportation, especially living here in California. And I stand with him because I trust his judgment. At first I said, oh, a trade war, I don't know. And I was listening to Ted Cruz about it today, where he's kind of eerie too, and he's the most conservative Republican up there in the House. And I do.
And he's a smart man.
He's a very smart man. And I was saying in the beginning with this trade, I said the president knows what he's doing, because he's going to make every country, especially Canada and Mexico and Germany and so forth, a deal that they cannot refuse. So I'm watching it very carefully, and I'm also researching and different people what they have to say, the pros and the cons within our own party, and to see how is this going to play out. When it came down to negotiations with the Iran deal, I said go for it. We should have never went into the Iran deal. Mark McConnell voted for the Iran deal. Oh, yes.
He voted to give the equivalent, if we want to get into that. Okay, I bring this up because people need to understand the value of a dollar.
Yes.
We gave billions to Iran, which translated in Iranian dollars, translated to trillions.
Yes.
Okay.
Trillions.
Just gave it to them, and we had owed that money to them for a very long time.
Well,
the timing was suspect. We shouldn't have done anything. Nothing.
But when it comes to the tariffs, I'm watching it very closely, especially as a person that I am a business major, and I followed the President Donald Trump for a very long time, and I'm researching it myself. But I want to make sure that this is the best deal, and I know that's one of the main reasons why I voted for him, because he is a good deal maker.
Right.
Because he saw the problems for so many years. If people go on YouTube and look up Donald Trump testifying on the House committees back in the 80s and the 90s, he talks about these deals and saying how we're doing a terrible job with these deals. I see the problem when it comes to both parties who are upset because we have an outsider who became president who finally said enough is enough.
He's shaking up the house of cards. That's what he's doing. He's shaking up and he's knocking it out.
Erin, this is better than a house of cards, and I'm a big fan of that program on Netflix.
All I can think about is all these cards stacked up like in the old TV show with the cartoons. And you come over and you push it.
Up. He has a whole new deck. A whole new deck of cards. And nobody knows. I tell everybody, our president plays 3D chess. He plays political chess. But when it comes to the tariffs, I trust and I pray that this is going to really help us reduce our deficit, and it will bring back revenue, and it will work. It won't happen overnight. It'll probably take maybe 4, close to 10 years, hopefully not that long, for us to see the effects of this deal that he's going to bring. Hopefully he gets a second term. I pray that he gets a second term, and I hope and pray that we get another Republican that will take his place after his 8 years, so we can see our economy actually grow.
Right.
And people will say, wow, you know, this was a really good president, and whoever his predecessor will be too, to keep that legacy going, because we are built on a foundation in a country of freedom of liberty, free market, and prosperity. And that's what we need to make sure that we keep that legacy going.
Well, we hope and we pray, and we're actually going to work hard to help you get elected as the people. You know, this is a federal position. Anybody can contribute to your campaign who's eligible to contribute. And but we hope and we pray and we will work hard towards getting you in there so you can support Donald Trump. Because here's the thing. If the policies can't get through, if the reforms don't happen, if the, when these things don't get taken care of and Donald Trump can't do his job and we're not seeing the gains and the benefits, it's going to be harder to get him reelected. So people like you getting into the United States House of Representatives, retaining that House, gaining new seats, will ensure that by 2019 you'll be in place, you'll have a good year to work.
Yes.
Then the campaigning starts for presidency. As a matter of fact, I heard that Kamala Harris wants to run against Donald Trump in 2020. But the way I see it is it's a progression and it's a systematic process where you'll be able to be in there. You'll be able to work hard. You'll be able to support the president, also the Constitution, and work for your constituents to get things done. And help him to get his next term so you can continue to legislate. Because this is the deal. We can't lose those House seats. And you're part of that. We have problems.
Yes.
We have solutions. And Aja Smith for the 41st District is one of those solutions. Now, Aja, I'm going to give you just a few minutes here. If you could give the audience, the listeners of the Erin Cruz Show and the watchers of the Erin Cruz Show, your name, your district you're running for, just like a 30 or 40 second recap, and then also let them know where they can go to contribute to your campaign and get involved. That would be great.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for listening. Please keep in touch. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter, Aja for Congress. My website is www.aja4congress.com. I'm still building up my website. I tell people you can donate, you can shoot me a message, you can ask how can you help. Contributions are really going to be needed right now. I need more yard signs, I need mailers, I need pamphlets. I have my ground game ready to go, but we need to get those contributions. Every little bit helps and counts, because right now I'm not going to outrace my incumbent, but at the same time, we will outvote him. So in November, I will be the next Congresswoman in District 41 and here in Southern California. And I tell people this, and especially those who are more concentrated on the state of California, if we lose the federal House and the Senate, we will lose our state and we will lose our country. I have nothing against anybody who is running on the state level. I support all of my friends who are running on the state level, including our future Governor John Cox. But if we lose the United States House and Senate, we will lose everything that we've all worked hard for, grassroots all the way up. So it is imperative that we keep our seats and we flip seats as well.
41st District.
41st District. We're going to flip this seat back red because it used to be red.
It used to be red.
It used to be red for a very long time. But we have to get out there and we have to support every candidate that's running. Grassroots, ground game. That's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have the boots on the ground. I call my team Gideon's Army. I don't have 1,000 or 2,000 volunteers. I'm building up to 300.
That's a great starting place. It really is. We still have a few more months. And so if you don't live in Riverside, if you live in Riverside County, maybe you don't live in Aja's district, you can still help.
And you still help me.
Be it telling your friends about her, having them skip a latte for the week and giving her $5, I can tell you, this woman, she will do well with your funds. It's not her. She knows it's not her money.
No, it's
and
not.
I can tell you that. And I know I wouldn't have Aja on the show and be working with her to help get her voice out if I didn't fully believe in her and her platform and what she's striving to accomplish. Now, Aja, you've got to come on the show again. We want to hear about the details of your race and kind of the conflicts as there's my dog. Can you hear my dog, Edward? But we want to have you on the show again, talk about your race, talk about the specifics as it starts heating up towards November. We want to make sure that your constituents know, that our listeners know, anytime that you have something you want to speak out about, that Erin Cruz Show is here for you, that we will give you that voice and that platform. And we definitely want to have you back on. And God bless you and God watch over you. We're going to be praying for you every night, Aja.
Every night. And I want to tell everybody, please pay attention what's going on with the FISA warrants. please pay attention what's going on with that part with national security, because that is a hot topic that everybody's trying to sweep underneath the rug. Taking away the security clearance is a big issue, and I know a lot about that and how that process works.
It's important.
But at the same time, pay attention to the bigger picture and what's going on with the investigation, because that right there is going to really establish on what's been really going on that we didn't know, especially with the last administration.
Right, and that's a national security issue, and that's something that some of these committees need about. You know, people think that the House of Representatives, even the Senate, that these members of Congress, that they just legislate. They don't. They're on different types of committees. They do hearings. They do all sorts of different functions, and it's important to understand the seriousness and how the actions of a prior administration can actually impact current administration. When you have corruption like we have currently and have had currently, we still have it. It's still there. There are a lot of people embedded. And you know, all it takes is a few good men to keep this nation on track, and a few good women as well. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a complex job in the House of Representatives and in the Congress, and they have a lot of work ahead of them, and you can't ignore any one piece.
No, you can't.
So important.
And people
need to be held accountable.
Oh yes, a lot of accountability, and we need a lot of transparency.
So now we did our last outro, but you know what? I think I have one more question for you, because we see hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing. We see Trey Gowdy. We see all these big names, and everybody's meeting and hearings and questioning and all this stuff. Where are the results? Where's the impact? We really are looking to people who we can elect where we will see results. And will you be a game changer in that you will make sure we get results from these hearings?
And that comes with my military background. We train for results. We train and train and train, so when it's time to go to war, we have results.
Right.
We have results, and we have to complete the mission. Right now, the investigation's gone too long, and we need results. Circles. It's like a hamster. I think the hamster is dead.
I want to know where. I want to know where Fast and the Furious went. I want to know what happened with some of these other investigations. All of a sudden, the media is silent. Well, we, the people, should have information, for one, and there should be results. There should be actionable items, you know. Well,
Erin, it's done by design.
Well, of course it's done by design, but we need to get people in there by design that will actually take action.
Well, the media is part of the problem. Yeah. You know, you go from one extreme, then you go to another extreme, but you're trying to figure out what are they distracting us from. I go back to the book 1984.
We might as well go one step further and talk about Soylent Green, okay? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
the book 1984, and it is one of the greatest books ever written, I think. But at the same time, you have to ask, where are the results on both sides of the aisle? You know, I admire Trey Gowdy, I admire Devin Nunes, but where are the results? But at the same time, I really think that their hands are tied, and they really want to say something. You have to
wonder why their hands are tied, and I'm going to leave that there, because you know, you can't speak to certain things because you haven't been briefed, and you haven't been read in, and there's so much out there on foreign policy, on different actions. I mean, you can't speak to it. You know, you could tell us that yes, you want to take action, but there is so much we don't know.
And a lot of things, and I go back with the need to know, the briefings that are classified. I know that the president does have authority to declassify, but I think he's going to think long and hard.
He has to be smart. We have to think about the long term, and I get that, and he's a smart man. But I can't wait to have you in there, because you say you're in for results, which we are too, as we the people. So, well, thank you again, Aja, for being on the Erin Cruz show. We're so blessed to have you on, and we can't wait to see you elected as our next Congresswoman for the next 2 years, and then 2 more years. We are going to get in term limits, though, right?
Yes, we are.
But no, we want you in there and get you reelected and get some work done. And God bless you.
To really make sure that we start and progress, we make sure that our district, our state, and our country is going to flourish.
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe we have the same common goal. Well, there you are, everybody. You know, we had Aja Smith on the show from the 41st District in Moreno Valley, in Riverside County. She's a phenomenal woman, a veteran. She just loves this country, and she wants to do the good work for the people. So please, she gave her information. Go to her website, learn more about her, learn about her background.
Follow me. Yeah.
Follow her on all social media. Share her posts. It's all about sharing. You know, here we have the Patriot Connection. We also have the Candidate Connection. It's all about connecting we the people for the future generations in this great republic of the United States of America. God bless you all. God bless California, and God bless the United States of America.
God bless everyone.
And stay tuned.
We will return to the Erin Cruz Show in just a moment.
Hello, everybody. So this is our little excerpt break. It's pre-recorded. Don't think that I'm going to can you. You're not canned. We're going to join back into the live Erin Cruz Show in just a few. But here's the deal, okay? That noise is ice cream. And I'm making it for Fun in the Kitchen with Erin Cruz. It's another fun thing that we're going to be doing. People said yes, that they want to see the food that we make. It's simple, it's quick, it's fun, it's practical. It just takes a few ingredients most of the time, and I love to cook with whole food. So we're going to be doing that maybe once every couple of weeks, maybe once a week. We'll see how many people are interested. The other flip thing is dun dun dun. So in all seriousness, we have a big problem in California, and the problem is that there are too many politicians, and there are too many regulations, and too many taxes. We have to replace the people who are in the swamp, who are the swamp, who are the swamp monsters. My book that's going to be coming out soon, I can't wait. We're going to talk about all of the inner swamp monsters, the swamp busters, those who helped during my Erin Cruz for U.S. Senate campaign under Dianne Feinstein. Now we're running for Kamala Harris. Those who helped me fight and beat out the California swamp the first time, the swamp busters. I write about them. So many interesting things. But the more interesting thing is that we are coming out with something hot to trot, and you don't want to miss it. We're going to help Californians realize who they need to help in their area to get their state back on track. That's in the state of California, Assembly, the state Senate, also congresspersons. We're going to help in that connectivity. We like the Patriot Connection, where we connect patriots with you. You are the people. We need to talk about the issues. And we have the Candidate Connection, where we connect the candidates with the information and provide everything that relates to their campaign, get you connected in that way. Connect. I can't say enough about that. But there's going to have to be a tool to help you do that. And so that's where this comes in. This is our little drop lead for the fact that we have something hot coming. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you tune in the next few days. I know this week's Erin Cruz Show is here, but you're going to have to stay tuned for next week. We're going to start releasing information that's going to just flip the lid off of the MSM and give power back to the people. Because you know what? That's where it's at, right, folks? Is making sure that we get the power back to the people so we can deregulate, so we can deregulate and deregulate, so we can de-governmentize and drain that California swamp. Get this state back on track. Make sure that we get Donald Trump 2020. Make sure that we move forward 2022. Erin Cruz for U.S. Senate. Beat out Kamala Harris, yes? So stay tuned. Let me just give you a hint. Think top 100. Maybe think I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice. I've been talking about this, who's naughty or nice. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be hot. Stay tuned.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
Hello and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. We have a phenomenal guest. All of our guests are phenomenal guests here on the Erin Cruz Show, but today we have an exceptional guest. a lady after my own heart. She loves the Republic, and she loves to write. I love to read. And she loves our president, which is, I mean, her book name even reflects this. Okay, we have Deanna Lorraine on the show. She is author of the book, Making Love Great Again. Okay, Making Love Great Again. Boy, do we need that on so many levels here in the country. Deanna is known as the red-pilled relationship and dating coach because she is the only dating and relationship expert that talks about and addresses with the real issues that are affecting men and women in dating and our intimate love lives and relationships. She wrote the book on it. She is a revolutionary thought leader on these issues. She throws out political correctness and tells it like it is always. Thank you for coming on the Erin Cruz show. Deanna.
Good to be here.
Yes. We're so excited to have you here because we need love on so many levels in this country, relationship-wise and otherwise. So tell us about your book.
Well, my book is about how the state of America is directly correlated to the state of our relationships. And it's no surprise that relationships, that America used to be booming and successful and thriving, and we had a great country, and we also had great citizens, and we also had great families, and the relationship between men and women was thriving. And it's really no surprise that, over the last 60 years, our traditional American values have been slowly deteriorating and replaced with liberal, progressive values. And look at the state of America today, and look at the state of our relationships.
Absolutely.
They're directly correlated.
They are.
What's the common thread? Liberal, progressive values, which are actually regressive, not progressive at all. Any patriotic person knows that. And so I talk about how do we repair the state of our country, and how do we make America great again? One of the big aspects of that is through making love great again.
That's absolutely it. And I have to tell you, you gave me a copy of your book. I love your book. Everybody should read your book. Even if you don't love love, you should love reading her book because knowledge is power, and it really does give you a good perspective. And even if you don't like Donald Trump, you should read her book because it will help you understand some other things that are maybe out of your mind space that will enlighten your life. Everybody can take something from a book, right?
Right. And it's not just for singles or dating. It's very much for people in relationships. It's about restoring the family unit, and it's about being better citizens in our country, right? Having our values that we used to have that have made America so great, which are just now missing. And it's really been part of a larger agenda, but here we are today. What are we going to do about it? That's the most important question.
Right, exactly. And what are you doing about it? You've written this book and hope to help transform the mind and impact the communities around you. So now, tell us a little bit about your background and what it is that you do. I hear you're one of the premier experts on love.
Yes, I'm a relationship and dating coach and matchmaker. That's how I started out my business about 9 years ago. I can't believe it's been this long, but
a decade almost.
Right? Almost a decade, and
we don't look a decade into any expertise.
Yeah, right. I'm 25. So when people ask me how old I am, I just say I'm going to give you a range. I'm between 25 and 35. Be okay with that. Yes. So I started my business a while ago, and I'm a child of divorce. My parents were divorced when I was young, so I kind of set on this mission to help save the world and prevent divorce and create happy marriages and relationships. And what I found over the last decade is that there has been a drastic decline in relationships, in the relationship between men and women and the family unit. And there is, been a lot of corruption in the way that men and women have been treating each other. And I'm seeing
perpetuated by the media, by the way.
Perpetuated by the media, by leftists and feminists, which we could get into later. But it was becoming so blatantly obvious because I would see the aftermath of men and women. I would work with them every day of all ages. And they're like, everyone wants the same thing at the end of the day.
Isn't that, I mean, they might have minor variations. Is that what you found? They have minor variations, but really they want a good life. And those people who want to be in a relationship, they want to have a good relationship.
Yes. They absolutely do. But then why is it so damn hard to connect? Everyone wants love, but nobody is connecting anymore. The birth rate is at a historic low. We're below replacement level. So it never happened in history before in the U.S. And marriage is on the decline. And for the first time in history, the very concepts of marriage, family, and even the concept of gender, for God's sakes, is under attack. And
right.
It's, and it's really, we've reached these scary times where, we might not even have marriage in a couple of years. That might just be.
Let's not say that. Let's not think
know.
that. We really have to get to the place of realizing that, what's made us great is our strong family values, our ability to have, long-standing relationships and instilling those values from generation to generation. But like you said, it's a societal breakdown. Like I said, perpetuated by the media. So how do we combat that? How do we combat that besides buying your book?
Yeah, thanks. The media is more like an accomplice to the crime. I would say the real perpetrators are leftists, the new left, and feminists. They really seem like they're dead set on destroying the family unit and dividing up men and women. And really dividing up this country, and really the ideologies of leftism and the modern waves of feminism really is just another part of, it's underneath the leftist umbrella. They're really anti-family when you look into it. That none of their or what they promote, they're not promoting the traditional nuclear family. They are promoting and glorifying single motherhood or LGBTQIAZ families. And they're promoting pretty much anything but the importance of the traditional family, and change the legal system so that you can actually are more incentivized to get divorced than stay together. It glorifies sex and violence and a culture of hedonism. So the media is really an accomplice to that ideology and that greater agenda, but we it's corrupted our values at such a level that we really need to work on the culture and spread the values of conservatism and, traditional American values, because they did have it right. If you look at the statistics and experiences of those of the past, they did have it right for the most part.
Right.
So,
I agree with you, but I think it's even bigger than that. And don't call me a conspiracist. Call me a conspiracist. Whatever you want to call me, you can call me it.
I'm on the same wavelength.
I'm
girl.
a realist, okay?
It's
and the realism for me, I see it's not just a leftism issue. It's not just a progressive issue or a feminist anti-male issue. It is literally a war on America issue. We have allowed people to infiltrate our nation with other kinds of ideologies and thoughts and let these kinds of perversions take over, if you will. And no one, very little, have we seen people combat it. And it's a really big problem. And I don't think Russia or China or any of these other countries have any one problem about our low birth rates or our issues with family or any of the issues that come with that whole dialogue right there. And that to me is disturbing, because I see that as more of the socialist side, the communist side of things. And I know that seems maybe extreme to a lot of people, but I think that it's a problem. It's a huge control
problem.
Issue.
You're so right, because this isn't just a war on America. It's a war on our very souls. This is not just a physical battle. It's very much a spiritual battle.
Absolutely.
Of truth and lies. What's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's evil.
Because what we see is what's up is down, what's left is right, what's wrong is now right. Correct?
So creepy.
So,
and those are, Marxist tactics.
So you work towards then with your coaching, you work towards bringing that communication of the mind to these individuals and connecting them with people who are like-minded and nurturing their ideas about love and kind of bringing some reality to their scope of life. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's a hard job.
It's a very hard job, especially now. And that's why I've kind of migrated from being just a relationship coach to I wasn't able to keep my mouth shut anymore about these issues that I see. Like, here's the culprit. So about a year and a half ago is when I wrote the book, and when I started writing the book. It came out this year. And I'm like, I need to start speaking out about the real issues that are affecting relationships and dating and marriage and the family unit, because no one else is. Everyone is too afraid of political correctness. Everyone's too afraid to speak out against feminism or these liberal ideologies that are pretty wacky.
That are breaking our nation and our families apart.
Our nation.
And spiritually, you know, I look at things, I'm a Christian, and I look at things from a spiritual perspective. And it's a war on America. It's a war on the family. It's also a war on our very souls, as you said. And, you know, what is benefiting the kingdom of heaven, not tearing down of the family unit. You know, and I think that a lot of people are lost, and they're getting more and more lost. And it's hard to snatch them back from everything that seems right and good in their mind, that feels good, that works for them. You know, getting back to the place of sanity and realizing that is, you know, their life is not bringing actual fulfillment. In what they're doing. And you probably have seen that a great deal. People are unhappy. So as much as they can be let to do whatever they want, make whatever choices they want, not that we want to control their choices, they still seem unhappy.
Exactly. In fact, statistics have shown that they're more unhappy now than they were before. And you know, our country, I love how liberals like to deny this, but our country really was built on Christian values.
Judeo-Christian values, yes.
You know, the founding fathers had Christianity in mind when they built our country, and it was, you know, God divinely inspired this country. So when we stray too far from that, the reason why we have so many personal liberties and freedoms here, unlike any other country, was because we have the freedom, but with the prerequisite that we have an underlying Christian values and we follow the 10 Commandments, right? And we have a strong moral compass. That's how freedom can work in that extent. But when we have all this freedom combined with a horrible moral compass, like we have now, a terrible, broken moral compass, that's when we run completely amok and cause all sorts of destruction to the country, which is what's happening now. So we really need to stick together and go on a crusade of just raising more awareness and having people hopefully wake up more.
I do believe that there are a lot of people waking up, and mind you, that the small amount of people that are actually part of the LGBTQ community, Q, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And now, if that's your life, that's your life. If that's your choice, that's your choice. I'm not saying anything about that. But what I'm saying is that this particular group, populace, is very, very small percentage-wise. The people that we hear speaking out are all the people who don't want to offend anybody by saying where they stand, you know. And like you said, you got to the point where you just couldn't hold back. You needed to just start speaking out, speaking truth, and coming out with maybe those ideas that aren't easy on the ears, maybe that aren't popular, but you're brave. And it's very interesting to me today that to say the truth is actually a brave action. You know, but we're proud of you. We're proud of you for doing that. I do it every day. Sometimes it's a little scary with the feedback you get from people, but it's important. But that group, I think it's important to say, they're small.
Yeah.
They're a small group, a small minority. And so who are you speaking to in your book? Are you speaking to everybody? Do you talk to just those people who want to see change in their lives?
I really am speaking to everyone. I mean, I obviously people are going to be more drawn to the book who are personally seeking that thing that's missing. So they're seeking a partner, they're wanting to get married, or they're already in a relationship or marriage and they want to improve their marriage. But the other thing is, it's so much a political book as well. It's a story about American values and restoring our country through those American values, which has been the missing link and the reason for such chaos these days. Not just between men and women, but because of the country.
So I would almost say that somebody who's in the LGBTQ community should get your book so they can better understand why our country is suffering the way they're suffering. Because I just don't even think, I think so many people are just disconnected and they don't understand the big picture. Or maybe they do and they just, I don't know. But I think it's written, because I've read it, I loved it. I think everybody should read it. I think it's written for everyone, and especially the people who may think that they might not like it. Read it, and give it away.
Yeah, feminists and liberals, they're going to get a lot of like gut checks throughout. I had some women say they cried throughout my book because of the reality checks. They laughed in my book. They threw my book, and then eventually they took the book back, and they eventually learned a lot from it and grew a lot from it. So that's kind of I guess that's a positive. That's a win. So that's my goal. It's definitely a transformative kind of book that's going to make you think and hopefully make you grow.
Right. Growth is hard. Mm-hmm. Growth is really hard. You know, it's one thing to say you're going to change and grow. It's another thing to actually do it. And like you said, through the book, you know, and then picked it back up. And, you know, we don't have to agree. We don't always have to agree on everything. And that's kind of like the all or nothing mentality is also killing America. You know, those values of respect and understanding and listening to somebody else's perspective is also a challenge.
It is, but you don't really grow unless you're hit with the truth. You're smacked in the face with the truth, and it is going to be uncomfortable. Truth can be really uncomfortable for people, especially in this kind of very liberal bubble that they're sheltered from truth because of political correctness and not wanting to hurt their feelings and safe spaces. But it's necessary.
But they can say what they want to say.
I know. That's
and
the funny
don't
thing.
be offended. And if you're offended, there's something wrong with you. You're racist, you're genderist, you're a somethingist, you're a ist. So I think that's kind of out the window, don't you? I mean, that's my new thing is don't tell me how to think. I won't tell you how to think, you know,
exactly.
And hear me out, I'll hear you out.
Exactly. We've lost that respect. You know, another thing to your point that we've kind of lost is that socialism, and I'm just appalled that woman from New York ran and won on a socialist platform. Very disturbing. But
I just want to call them communists because really down in the core of it, that's what they want.
Same damn thing. But it's going to stamp out, I mean, I don't even think all these kids and these, you know, college kids and young folks that are voting for these people, they have any idea of the implications of socialism and the long-term impacts of that. But it really does stamp out the American dream. The American dream says that we come here and we can have every opportunity as everyone else. And there's some natural competition with capitalism. You know, there's natural competition, and some of them are going to make it, some aren't, but basically...
Or some will struggle and eventually will.
Yes, and they will, but it's about the struggle, and it's about that, you know, that will to succeed and having that strength, perseverance, and commitment that gets you through, and having you get through and succeed based on merit and those qualities of persistence rather than, you know, just because you're a woman and you need to reach a quota, or because you're a Mexican and you need to fulfill that spot. If everyone is equal in the socialist way, then it definitely stamps out the American dream and innovation and perseverance.
Well, we've seen that with Obamacare, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality is socialism, and we've seen it across the globe. Socialism doesn't work.
Does not.
And it creates basically you have two classes. You know, you're either in the winning group or the serving group. All you do is work for the man. And we have $20 trillion in debt. And we have major societal issues. To see that woman get, you know, make that top slot, it is frightening. It is absolutely frightening. And again, I agree with you. People don't know what they voted for. Many of them. Some of them do. But many of them don't understand the ramifications. And I've always seen it from this perspective, and this is kind of more political end, is that part of that reason is for 8 years, Obama was in office. That wasn't Trump. Trump did not run up $10 trillion in debt. No. And Obama, okay, he ran on not one dime. And he ran up $10 trillion in debt. Now, how have we really, really super felt that as Americans? We really haven't seen any realization in our pocketbooks of what that looks like. I mean, we've had inflation, we've had other things. I don't believe that the people, these children, they don't realize until they move out of their parents' homes and they live their life and they pay taxes. They don't realize the true value of the dollar. And, you know, with all that debt, I don't know they realize the implications of Obama's policies.
I don't think they do either. And you know what you said, it's not just about hitting us in the pocketbooks or having us really feel that effect. I think it's just having a leader who is a role model for sticking up for our economy and, you know, fighting for us to have a strong economy and a strong country. And even if he's nickel and diming things sometimes, I know he cuts regulation after regulation.
Oh, Donald Trump? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's wonderful to have somebody who supports,
cares about our wallets and
our people.
Know, right. And Nancy Pelosi just calling it, oh, these are just crumbs. I mean, you know, speak for yourself, but even if it's a couple $100s, it's
your
still...
Your crumb is somebody else's bread.
There we go. I like that.
I mean, your crumb is somebody else's bread, and actually could be somebody else's entire pantry.
Right.
So, you know, I've been a single mom. I've been there, and life hasn't always been. So, yeah, I mean, what is Nancy Pelosi thinking? I mean, seriously, we have to get back to the place where, you know, we are making love great again. And I mean, how do you think we can do that? I mean, Deanna, I just, sometimes I get this feeling that we're so far off, we're so out of touch, but I know we can, but what are your thoughts? How do you think we can accomplish this?
A big part of making America great again, I do think, is making love great again. Right. And love is not just love between men and women, because that is fundamental, right? God created men and women to be each other's helpmates. Right. And when we have a strong relationship between men and women, then we have a strong family. And we know that strong families create a very strong country. And the left and socialists and whatnot, they are, the biggest threat to them is a strong family. Mm-hmm. Because a strong family can think for themselves. They typically have strong values. Like, they're forced to be reckoned with when you have a nice shelter of your family there.
Right.
And that support, right? You're much less easily influenced by outside negative influences and big government.
Right.
Key to that, making America great again, is absolutely making love great again between men and women, and stop all this, you know, man bashing, this very toxic feminism stuff that's going on. And number two is also making love great again between our people. You know, right. I mean, we have really gotten to a very scary point where hate is becoming cool. You know, like
it is. It is.
Not for people like us, luckily, but for a scary majority of the country, they think it's cool to be outraged every day and spew hate and division, and all of that is evil. It's darkness, and it doesn't come from love. It doesn't come from light,
and it doesn't come from God.
It does not come from God. God wants us to be united. Our founding fathers wanted us to be united, because united we stand, divided we fall.
Right.
We're seeing that right now. I mean, that was one of the keys to making our country so great and why it's so exceptional. And they are constantly trying to divide us. So when people are in that constant state of hate and victimhood and divisiveness, we are certainly continuing to make America fall. So right. Love is more, when I say make love great again, it's not just between men and women and the family, which is very important, but also we need to start living and acting out of love towards our fellow Americans, and not in ways that are hateful and divisive and competitive.
Right, and that goes back to like the Nancy Pelosi's and the Maxine Waters and the Feinsteins and the Harrises, all of these people trying to cause divide and making these comments and bashing our president and alienating the people and dividing. It's not coming to the place where we can have conversations, find solutions, work towards problem solving. And like you said, you know, being able to have the conversations and the compassion for one another and the love and caring for one another, to be able to have that strong place where we are making America great again. And that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So now, I mean, I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going with this book? Have you thought of, or has anybody talked to you about making a movie or going one step further? I mean,
some people have, but I think it would be phenomenal.
I was actually talking online with tech support today, and somebody mentioned to me, they're like, oh my gosh, that would make a really great movie. And I thought, oh wow, you know what, that really would. And they brought up a good point, that and they shared with me that they're a Christian. They said, you know, we need more love We need more compassion. And, you know, we fought for our families, you know, when we came here, you know, escaping England, if you want to call it escaping England, declaring our independence.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was out of the want to have a good place to bring your families, to build up a nation, a free people, to be able to worship how they so choose and everything else. So now you've thought about it. You haven't gotten that far. I mean,
I would love. I'm so open to it. If anyone wants to approach me with an idea, or someone who knows how to create a movie,
right?
Obviously, I need funding. I do have a GoFundMe for Making Love Great Again movement. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, because I consider it kind of like the hashtag walk away movement. You know, more people are joining this movement of walking away from the Democrat Party to just a free thinker, a conservative person, or somebody who's maybe not even conservative, but someone who's ditching those toxic liberal and democratic values. So what I'm trying to imagine, if there was a hashtag Make Love Great Again movement where just more and more people joined in and they said they're denouncing all this hate and they're ready to make love great again and stop with all this
That'd be wonderful. That'd be wonderful. You know, I do think, you know, God is love. Love is light, and we are living in such a dark place. And it's really interesting to me, even the alienated progressive left, who is so left, they talk about how dark things are and how divisive things are and how horrible things are. And you think, well, aren't you a part of that? I mean, can't we talk about how to change that? I think deep down, as humans, as people, they want the same thing. They want a good life for their family and for themselves. And if they can get to that place of realizing we just maybe socially are on different wavelengths, that there might be a little bit more cracking and a lot more walking away. But, you know, I do think it's a movement and it's a process. Like you said, you're fighting for conservatism, as many of us are, and it's a valiant fight. So can you give us a little bit of a recap? Tell us your name, tell us a little bit about yourself, and also where people can find your book and also get involved in the hashtag Make Love Great Again movement.
Pioneered by Erin Cruz. And
anything we can do, right, for the country.
So my name is Deanna Lorraine, and I am the author of Making Love Great Again. This is my book, The New Road to Reviving Romance and Winning at Relationships. It is for singles, it's for couples, it's for people who aren't even interested in relationships, because it's also a book about American values and American exceptionalism and how that's tied into our relationships. So you can get the book on Amazon. Just type in Making Love Great Again and grab the book, and would love it if you wrote a review too.
Yes, and reviews are good. Yes,
reviews are good. I do a podcast too, a Make Love Great Again podcast, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
What time?
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Go to my channel at DeannaLorraine.com. Deanna Lorraine 7. That's my YouTube channel. And that's why I talk about all the kind of pull in the current events of the day and how they apply to these themes of the book and Making Love Great Again. So definitely tune into my podcast. I think you'll really like it. I go into in depth with a lot of these themes. And then hashtag Make Love Great Again.
Yes, spread it all over social media. Make sure you go to her website, check her website out. That's DeannaLorraine.com. That's DeannaLorraine.com, right?
Yeah.
I want to spell that because, you know, it's not Deanne, it's Deanna.
Deanna. So. And if people want to be so kind and generous, in my GoFundMe, there is Make Love Great Again GoFundMe, and it outlines an itemized list of where I'm going to put those funds to.
Oh,
and,
wonderful.
you know, T-shirts and hats for Make Love Great Again, like the red hats, and lots of cool stuff that we need for the movement. So I would always appreciate it. Of course, you don't have to, but anything is appreciated.
Well, you know, we're in full support of you, and you're working towards making love great again. That's for sure, Deanna. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really would love to have you on periodically and talk about, you know, some of the topics going on and some of the struggles. You know, we're having what's called the Patriot Connection and also the Candidate Connection on every week. where we talk to patriots and candidates, and it'd be great to have your insight on because there's so much going on and the people are so wanting solutions. And your insight would be valuable. So we would welcome you on the show again.
Yes, count me in anytime.
Yes, wonderful. Well, thank you, Deanna, and God bless you.
Yeah. God bless you too, and God bless America.
God bless America.
We will return to the Erin Cruz Show in just a moment.
We have just heard from Deanna Lorraine, Making Love Great Again. It's just epic, the fact that all of us patriots are working together to get this nation back on track, following the lead of President Donald Trump. You know, it's such a great thing to be seeing this. One step further, I mentioned earlier in the show, we have a lot going on. Well, right now I want to tell you, look at that note. Team Erin Cruz, should I say Team Erin Cruz, California Hot Ticket 100. This is it, folks. Go ahead and go to Twitter if you're online at Real Erin Cruz. Go to Facebook at Real Erin Cruz. You can look up a hashtag on Google at Team Erin Cruz or California Hot Ticket 100, and you will find there a list of 100 candidates statewide that are running for office. We have all of our top tickets, which are statewide offices, as well as California State Senate, Assembly. We have also the California representatives for the United States Congress. I'm going to tell you, it is hot. Don't forget to look for your representatives, look for your district. We're going to go ahead and provide in the comments below the links so you can see where you live. If you don't know your representative, you need to find out who that is. If you don't know who you're going to vote for, you need to do the research. We aren't going to tell you who to vote for, but we're going to give you the list of the people that we support for the offices throughout the state. I want to thank you again for taking a look at that and being a part of the process. This is not where we stop. You know, we have to keep going even further. I put California Hot Ticket 100. I'm hoping that every state across this nation makes their own Hot Ticket 100, at least 100 candidates throughout their state, local all the way up to the top, that people can depend on to be the people who will support our president, support the agenda of putting America first, putting citizens first. It's vital we unite. One step further from that, we are going to showcase each one. If we can get each one of these candidates on our show, that is our goal. We want to be able to make sure that you have the information on each of the candidates, not just their website, not just information that you can find out more about them online, but also hear directly from them, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We have to connect the people. Patriots connection, candidates connection. That's what we're going to do all the way through to November. So stay tuned. Make sure you look for that Hot Ticket 100.
My name again is Morgan Murtaugh, and you can find more information about me or donate, volunteer at morganmurtaugh.com. You don't have to live in California to volunteer. You can phone bank from anywhere in the world. And so again, I'm running on securing our border. I'm running on cutting taxes. I'm running on helping small businesses, because the state of California and the federal government as a whole have done a disservice to the citizens of the United States when it comes to those things, and the citizens of San Diego, my district, my home. And so all the help I can get to help to promote this message and to get people like Susan Davis, who are career politicians who just sit there and do nothing, out of office, help.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
Hello, and welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have had two marvelous guests. We have a third guest right now. Amazing individual. He's from New York. I'm going to read you a little bit about him. His background is extensive. He has so much to contribute to our great republic. And so I want to make sure and not leave anything out so that way you can get all of the details. Now, one thing I found interesting was about our guest was Dan Debono, that's his name. He has a quote on the top of his website, and it just rang true to my heart. The quote is, to protect and enhance the liberty of the individual American citizen. Dan Debono. I mean, that says it all right there for me as a patriot, as a mother, as a woman of God. It just says it all. But I'm going to read you his bio right now. So Dan, he was born in New York. He's a lifelong resident of Northport, New York, where he was raised. This reads true to my heart too, because many of you know my background. He was raised by an extended Irish-Italian family of teachers, cops, and nuns. Dan and his two brothers all served in the U.S. Navy during Gulf War I and Bosnia. One sister is an intensive care nurse, and the other sister is a speech pathologist in public schools. He has a servant family with servant hearts. They want to help the public. It's just amazing. So Dan, he first volunteered for military service in 1986 through the Navy ROTC program. During his time at Holy Cross, he was greatly impacted and inspired by the military events in Panama in December of 1989. Dan was selected for Navy SEAL training after college. He was class leader of Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training Class in 173. While Dan was a class leader, he jointly set, I'm going to read that again. He jointly set the Class 2-mile ocean swim record. That man has stamina. He has heart. Dan was assigned to SEAL Team 2 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He completed one tour overseas during the Bosnian War. He conducted numerous joint training operations with NATO allies and specialized in joint special warfare submarine operations. After his military service, Dan attended the University of Chicago's Graduate School of Business. Yes, he's a businessman, ladies and gentlemen. He earned high honors while receiving a master's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance. Dan spent 20 years in finance and investing, and now he runs a small investing and advisory firm in New York. Wow. Welcome to the show, Dan Debono. Thank you for coming into the Erin Cruz show. This is extensive. I mean, I've read about you. I've read the interviews. I've read what Fox News has to say about you. I've read what the pundits have to say and everything else. I mean, but what you put on your website says it all. You're a family man. You've put your life into service for our country. You've continued forward. I mean, you're involved in the Republican Party. You're a conservative. I mean, tell us what drove you to run for U.S. Congress.
Erin, thank you very much for having me on your show.
Of course.
It's my honor to speak to you and to your audience, and I sincerely appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's right. I spent after my service in the Navy, I did spend 20 years in finance. And what I discovered when I looked around, and when you're working in finance, you really it's a job with a lot of hours and a lot of intensity, and you really have to focus just on the job. And I think towards the end of my 20-year period, I realized what was happening to Long Island, which is my district. And Long Island has a serious set of challenges. And what I saw was a region with population stagnation and wage stagnation. Right. And I coupled that with the personal experience of 4 of my 5 siblings that you mentioned moved away. And the sad thing is that the job opportunities on Long Island were lacking relative to the cost of living. So I decided that, it's a place that I love. I've been there my whole life. I've been around the world and been in other places for periods of time. It's one of the most beautiful places in the country. It's a beautiful geographically. It has fantastic education systems. It should be a magnet for families. It should be a magnet for entrepreneurs, but it just wasn't happening. So I decided that I was tired of seeing my loved ones leave. And I want to protect my Long Island and protect my country. Right,
right. Now, a couple of things, in case I really didn't go into it too much in his bio, I know we kind of glossed over it. Dan is running for the 3rd Congressional District in New York. New York is one of the most liberal states. It's similar to California in that it's like an exodus in some areas for many because they can't afford to live, and the areas are suffering. But he's running in a place where there's a lot of liberalism. And the person he's running against That's a whole nother story. So Deanna is a great contrast for that, because, I mean, what your financial background is, Dan, accompanied with your conservative and I'm sure fiscal conservative views and positions, it's going to aid us tremendously in the House of Representatives, because where do we, all of our financial bills start? They start in the House. We need people with good financial sense. So where do you stand in contrast to your competitor?
Well, Erin, you brought up a very good point. New York is more liberal than a lot of the interior of the United States, and in many ways it's like California, in which you have these fringe groups moving farther and farther to the left.
Yes.
In my case, the 3rd District of New York, it's a little more than 30 miles wide, and it extends from about halfway out on Long Island into parts of Queens inside of New York City. And as you go from east to west, the district goes from pretty hardcore Republican to pretty hardcore Democrat. And it's one of the districts that they call a swing district. So because of that demographic on Long Island, voter registration is relatively balanced. This particular district, it does have a Democratic advantage, but it's within the range of error in which I have a very good chance of winning based on the demographics alone, never mind the contrast of my messages, which I'll get into as well.
Right, which I was looking at, you do have an incumbent that you're fighting. That makes it a little bit of an uphill battle, but I believe that your messaging is strong. And I believe that with the whole walk away movement and people shying away from that progressive, crazy progressive left mentality and realizing I'm a Democrat, I can't identify with that maybe anymore. We need strong fiscal, policies, and laws. We need people in the House and Congress that are going to work for us. The people, even though we have a majority in the House right now, there are still a lot of people there, like the incumbent in your district, who may not be serving the populace there. And I think that with your messaging, you can win. I do believe that. So tell us a little bit more about what you were going to go into before I cut you off about I do that. It's a conversation, it's a process. But tell us a little bit more about your platform and your messaging, because that's so vital right now.
Here in Long Island, what is happening is we're losing the middle class. And we're losing the middle class not just in Long Island, but in many parts of the country.
Yes, we are.
And my message is primarily an economic one, which is to strengthen the middle class of jobs and in wages. And where I really differentiate myself both from my opponent and from many of our existing leaders is I have a very deep understanding of the economy, employment, and wages. And that's from my 20 years that I spent on Wall Street intensely, 15-hour days for years and years and years or longer. What's happened to Long Island is threefold. We've lost hundreds of thousands of middle-class jobs over the last couple of decades. Some of the reasons are ones beyond our control, but I'm going to address the ones that are within our control.
Right.
So when people try and piece together why is the population stagnant, why are we losing our young people, and why is our family size catastrophically shrinking? And again, this is a phenomenon that's not just occurring here.
Right.
And among the reasons are what you often hear referred to as globalization. So what globalization really means is a reversion to the mean of labor costs. And labor costs in much of the developing world, where we've lost millions of jobs to, are around $2 or $3 an hour. And at the same time, there's also no environmental restrictions, and there's no health and safety.
Yeah, and sometimes it's higher than that. I mean, there is a large disparity, and it has to do with regulations.
That's right.
And so...
Well, not just it has to do with treaties as well. And one of the things that you've seen the president seeking to address is the loss of 8 million manufacturing jobs over the last 20 or so years. Now, some of those jobs are lost because of a cost differential, but other jobs are lost simply because there's limitations on the amount of goods that the United States is allowed to sell to other companies. You see this most often with China. There's simply a cap on the amount of goods we can sell. And it's not just a tariff. Tariffs are a big part of the problem. And as I heard the president explain today in one of his appearances, often we're charged 10% to sell goods in another country, and we only charge them 2%. So one of the goals...
It's unbelievable.
One of the goals of his work on tariffs is to even the playing field and have what he's terming and what I think is appropriate, fair trade. Free trade is a very, it's an ambiguous term. We want fair trade. We want our jobs back. We want to put American interests first. We want the American class to be American middle class.
America first. I love it. I love it. America first. You know, fair trade, free trade, it doesn't matter what you call it. Whatever we do, it has to make sense for America. What other country would not put their country first, would not put their countrymen first, would not put their people first, would not put their, I mean, you as a family man, you know, you put your family first. You have to think to these things, and it's not it's not uncommon, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing it.
So that's, you know, when you hear all this noise in the news about the trade war, there's a really good intention behind the tariff. Bring back millions of American jobs. And yes, there's going to be some winners and losers along the way. But on balance, at the end of this process, the United States is going to be tremendously better off. And by the United States, I mean the American middle class. And that's something you also have to be aware of. When people talk about the country or the economy or us or our, oftentimes they're not talking about middle class wages and jobs. Oftentimes they're referring to the profits of what I call stateless multinational corporations who have no loyalty to the United States. The point of the tariffs are to bring back jobs to the United States and to restore some of the 8 million manufacturing jobs, for example, that we lost over the past 25 years. And the president's agenda is America first, which means the American middle class first, which often is at odds with the goals of what I call stateless multinational corporations, whose goals are to find the cheapest source of labor internationally and could care less if they destroyed every single American job if it meant profits were going to go up. But we cannot have a situation where we have no middle class. We need to have a middle class, and we need to put the interests of the middle class first.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we've seen this issue in California as well. And like you said, it's a national thing. It's not a New York thing. It's not a Long Island thing. It's not a, you know, it's across the nation. And it's frightening. Quite frankly, it's frightening, and it's really motivating that we have a president in office who wants to take action, and it's also quite frightening that we don't have the people in place in the United States Congress that actually want to put America first and take the actions.
What you have in Congress is you have a lot of fear, and a lot of congressmen on both sides of the aisle, I call them corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats, they're essentially bought and paid for by these stateless multinationals. And our entire campaign finance system is broken. What you have is you have these stateless multinational corporations giving tens of thousands of dollars of campaign contributions to congressmen on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
And then
it's a big issue.
It creates this state of fear. The congressmen, the leaders that we've elected to represent us, they don't act in our best interests often. Right. They often act in the interests of these big corporations, and it's not in sync with the American middle class. And people don't understand why the politicians are not working on their behalf, and the answer is because they're bought and paid for. And you see it on both sides of the aisle, and I think it's a big flaw in the system.
It is. So are you hinting to the fact that you want to see more campaign reform?
Absolutely.
Campaign finance reform. I've seen that. I ran for United States Senate against Dianne Feinstein, and just watching the money pour into certain, I mean, and even through the races that are going on right now that aren't for the U.S. Senate, watching the money pour in for different angles from different people, it's frightening, and it gives them a massive edge. But it also means that they're going to be beholden to these people. So, what do you see in terms of campaign finance reform?
Well, let me just say we have a representative democracy, and yet as you look back over the past 20 years, I would challenge you and anybody else to point to me one piece of legislation that was passed in favor of the middle class that big corporate America was against, and I have not been able to find anything. Often they'll often couch legislation will get passed, and it's often couched as being to the benefit of the middle class, when in reality the middle class will get pennies on the dollar as to the benefits of big multinationals get.
Right.
And the reason, as we just talked about, all these many of the politicians in power get money from the companies that they're supposed to, they're tasked with overseeing.
Right.
And no wonder nothing ever gets done. If you've gotten $30,000 in donations from a big multinational contractor, when it comes time to looking at how that company is regulated and what rules and requirements are there, you're going to take it easy on them. There's just no way around it. There's no possible way you can take tens of thousands of dollars and look at these companies objectively.
Right.
So
No,
what I expect to happen, I don't have high expectations. What do I think is the right thing to happen? There should be caps on acceptance of corporate money.
Right. So yes, because it is one thing to have this kind of idealist perspective of what you'd like to put forward and put up for, you know, adoption. But it's quite another trying to get it through the process and actually even get it on the floor and get it to the point where it could even be conceived as an option. But I think that it's about time for people who are elected and put in the House of Representatives, especially when it comes to, you know, some of these financial bills, to start putting things forward and to start watching these politicians start voting these things down, start denying them, start kicking them, start pushing back. Because right now we just seem to have a clique of people who, like you said, they're serving certain groups and it's just not serving the American people. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about stripping the corporate contributions, in the sense that we do live in a representative republic, and you know, the people, that's where it's at. And I know corporations are viewed as persons in some sense, but
yeah,
I believe that
a lot of times things are legal, but they're really not right.
That's absolutely the case, and that was what I was going to say. Is just because it's legal doesn't make make us right. Just because there's a loophole doesn't mean you should use it. Gray doesn't mean green light.
Well, here's where it also happens. There's the right way to address this problem, right, which is through introducing more competition and through right-minded politicians refusing these contributions and behaving in more of an ethical manner. And there's the wrong way. There's the progressive left way. There's the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez way, which is simply going to be massively excessive taxation and wealth redistribution. So what I urge, you know, fellow like-minded patriots and middle-class Republicans to do is to join with me on campaign finance reform before it's too late, before we're taken over by these left-wing lunatics who are simply going to they're not going to respect property rights, and they're going to seek massive wealth redistribution.
Right.
We need right by the middle class the right way before it's too late.
Absolutely. And we're getting to that edge point right now where I see that a lot of the Republicans even are leaning left, and in a direction that's far less conservative than what I believe most of the middle class would think is sanity in as far as the legislation is concerned. Now, okay, so I have a question. I want to know, where do you stand on term limits?
I'm a strong believer of term limits. When I see people on TV in both parties who've been there for 30 years, their message starts to get drowned out, and I realize they're there for their own survival. They're not there in the public interest. They're there, and everything they do has one goal: to get reelected, and they're not serving the American people. So I'm a strong believer in term limits. For the House of Representatives, that should be something around 8 years. I'm negotiable on what the number is, but my sense is politics is a temporary public service that people should perform. Get in, have your voice heard, and get out.
Right. Now, I know many of the people that follow the Erin Cruz show, they're in firm support of term limits. Most people are. They're just tired of that politician being reelected. And I think that'll help get rid of our problem with the big purse. Part of kind of a campaign reform type issue would be, taking away that thing of, okay, this person's been in there 25 years. Their purse is huge. Their ability, their name recognition is huge. They can just get reelected over and over and over again. And when you take that term limit and you put that there, that's a cap. It's done deal. We have term limits here in the state of California, up in the Assembly, up in Sacramento, and we're just starting to see a little bit of the fruit of that, although it hasn't really flourished quite as much as we'd like to have at this point. But I have great hopes for it, and I think in Congress it would do wonders. It really would, because decades is just terrible. So now, for those
of both sides, it's on both sides.
Oh, it's on both sides. I would have to say, Dan, from where I sit, and I'm not sure if you agree with me, but where I sit, we've had control in the House for some time now, and we're not seeing, Obamacare hasn't been repealed. There are some things that haven't been adjusted. We have a Republican Congress, you know, and they excuse themselves because they have this seat or that seat, and they're just a small, I mean, they come up with every reason and excuse in the book. Many of these people have been in there for years. So if they're...
Yeah, the behavior of some of these Republicans is despicable, and I'll name a few.
And I love the Republican Party. I love...
You know, it's despicable. They come up with every reason. I think they're trying to be cool and be accepted by the cool kids, which is the media. But they betrayed their constituents. They betrayed their principles, and I can't wait to see them leave their positions.
Well, and they run on platforms, right? And so that's why I ask very specifically about your platform, and we want to know where you stand, is because we want to know exactly where we can hold you to the wall, Dan, once you're hired for the job. But that's the important part, is when somebody says they're going to do something, your name is your word. Your word is your name. You know.
But the other thing, Erin, people are afraid of, well, you know, if the people, they want to stay in power. But if your ideas are good enough, then you should have no issue with relinquishing power, so to speak, or your role as an elected official to the next person. And if your ideas will outlive you if they are good ideas. And if they're not, you don't deserve to be there anymore. So that would solve, having term limits would solve a lot of our problems. But also, we're not getting people with enough backbone in Congress. We need a new level of quality of leaders in Congress.
Patriots, not politicians. And I believe that comes from being a regular person in the regular world, having lived a regular life. You have a family, you have your business world, you have your background, but you're grounded. You're grounded in the sense that you have strong morals, strong values, and you're not going to yield. You're going to stick to your platform. Now, Patriots, not politicians. The other thing is veterans. I believe veterans like yourself, because you were in the U.S. Navy, play a large role. You have a perspective that's vital, especially with some of the issues that we deal with, with the Congress and different committees that are there. Having that perspective is important as well. And, you have the full package. You really do, Dan, and I commend you for your run and what you're working towards. Now, I read in your bio on your website that you worked on 2 presidential campaigns. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're very involved with the political process at home. You have been for some time, and you've seen kind of the dirty end of it, and so you want to make good of it. But what has that lent you as far as experience to be able to do the posturing that you need to get done, to maneuver through Congress? Because it's a sticky swamp up there.
It is a sticky swamp, and you have to believe that you have enough backbone and principle that you're going to stick to your principles once you get elected. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, I cower before no man. Nobody owns me. I represent the people that I was elected to. I will represent the people that I was elected to represent. Right. I don't belong to any special interests, and I quite often will talk against the special interests because what I think they're doing is often wrong. And one of the benefits of being a veteran is you have this perspective of true service. Right. And it's not just me. It's the way that you're raised by your parents, and it's the experiences that you have as a military man. It's true public service. And in my case, it wasn't just me. It's my entire family. It's my brothers, my father, my grandfather, people who weren't in the military were police officers. It's true public service with an aim of helping people.
Right.
There's no other motive. I have no interest in staying in Congress past my 8 years or whatever we determine the right term limit is. I want to get in. I want to have my ideas widely disseminated, and these are ideas that can be carried on by other people. They don't.
Well, that would be the idea, right? I mean, that would be the only point of putting forth legislation, is to have it become law. And I've always been from the standpoint, I've been an activist for 10 years. And what I've seen just as a regular person is that we have so many laws already, Dan. I mean, there's so many laws on the books, and they're either not being enforced, or they've manipulated them or used loopholes. What I would like to see, and I'm sure many of the constituents in your district probably also would like to see, is that you work towards refining the laws we currently have, not just continue to legislate and legislate and legislate and legislate and pile law upon law upon law. And what do you think about that angle?
I think what you're speaking to is when President Trump began his term, one of the ideas
I love Trump.
One of the ideas he put forth was that for every regulation that gets created, 2 regulations need to be eliminated.
At least.
I think it's a fantastic idea. You know, the code in the United States is thousands and thousands of pages. It's ridiculously complex, absurd, ununderstandable, and selectively enforced, which is why we have the immigration problem that we have, because previous executives decided not to enforce certain laws. So we have to, whatever we have must be enforced. But what we have is too complex. It must be simplified. And I think that the best government is the least government, and government you can barely see. You know, government's role is very limited.
Right, absolutely.
I
agree with that.
You know, it's a system in which to operate, and that's it. And you know, the power of the individual is the best power that exists, and that's the structure of society that'll maximize the benefit for all.
Right.
So
I
regulation is another part of my strengthening the middle class platform. It's bringing the jobs back, but deregulating so people can more easily create new businesses. You know, the new business formation rate right now is the lowest. It's towards the lowest end of the lower end of the range, and toward the lowest number it's ever been. And that's because of years and years of overregulation by Obama. I mean, what he did was so destructive. The amount of regulations that there exist, the licensing authorities, the capital requirements, the jurisdictions, you know, the work rules. These are just absurd, and they've crushed new business formation, which is another reason that wages have remained stagnant. Right. So that's another part of my platform is to continue the good work that the president has been espousing on deregulation.
So you support Donald Trump?
I support Donald economically. I support him 101%. His ideas to put the American worker first are second to none. That's what all of us should be doing in any position of leadership. America is based upon having a thriving middle class. We've lost that thriving middle class, and the president's ideas are intended to restore that middle class to vitality. From tariffs, deregulation, trade deals, absolutely, I support them completely.
Absolutely, that's wonderful.
And you're starting to see the impacts of these things. And what's interesting, you hear noise from the establishment on both the left and the right, which makes me more confident that what the president is doing is the right thing. You know, the more the Wall Street Journal squeals about the damage from the tariff, the more that I realize he's doing the right thing. Because
yes, you've got that right. The more they squeal, the better we're doing.
They squealing right now, you know, and they move from thing to thing to thing, you know, from one tragedy to the next, which are all basically fabricated. But the bottom line is he's working on behalf of the American people. And what's many people don't realize, though, is the interests of the middle class worker are not necessarily aligned with the power in this country, right? And one of the objective measures that people often use to measure the quality of the economy is the stock market. But what I will say is that I track for a period of my career, my focus was on mergers and acquisitions, and what I track is what happens in the stock market when there's a corporate merger or consolidation. And what a corporate merger and consolidation is often based on is layoffs. They call them synergies, but it means how many people can we fire? And what you see on Wall Street is the more people that can be fired in any particular deal, the more the stock market celebrates. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon in which the price of a particular company's stock is not necessarily reflective of the well-being of its employees in the American middle class. And I think what Trump is doing is working on behalf of those middle class employees with these tariffs. It's not necessarily going to be the profit maximization tool that big money would like it to be, but its goal is to help the American middle class, and sometimes those things are at odds. So we have to be aware of that. And what you hear from the establishment press is that, oh, it's going to crush the economy.
Right. But
here, semantics again gets very tricky.
It's delicate, and we have to think long term. You know, we can't always be looking just to the moment. You know,
remember when you hear the word the economy, Erin, we have to help our economy. Often what they're referring to is the corporate profits of these multinationals that have no loyalty to the United States. They're not talking about the middle class. You or me and our neighbors, they don't care about what the term the economy. They care about, do they have a job? Do they have enough money to pay their bills? And those are not the same. And you'll hear people try and trick you into talking about them as if they're one and the same. And they'll say, Erin, we need to lay you off so we can maximize profits. So it's good for the economy, don't we? And many people will basically hear that argument, and they won't say it that explicitly, but that's what they're saying. And with these tariffs, that's what they're saying. They're saying, oh, we have to keep profits high because it's good for the economy, which means we have to destroy your job and send your job overseas.
Right.
There's a lot of semantics and trickery in reporting and the way
smoke, mirrors, whatever is good for their narrative and their position and their agenda. And I think it does come down to agenda. And I've been watching just since Donald Trump took office, and the media is out of control. And I love when he tweets and he hones in and gives the American people information direct. Of course, maybe it's not totally comprehensive, but it's enough that the American people can get a glimpse and then look at what the news is saying and watch the pressers and really get the idea of what's really going on. Nunes, he would put out today that, was it last night, that he was having trouble getting information out, proper reporting out. He gave a statement to the press wouldn't put it forward, so what did he do? He went on Twitter and he said, I gave a statement to the press refuses to print it, here you go, American public via Twitter. And I just think to myself, these big corporations, these conglomerates are not working for the American people. They're working for their agenda. They're working for their pocketbooks.
Now, remember the way.
So we need you, Dan, to talk. When you get in office, you need to talk directly to the people, because we don't want others to control the dialogue.
Yeah, but remember now, corporate America, they are supposed to work on behalf of their shareholders. I don't blame corporate America. Who I blame is our political leaders who are supposed to be working on behalf of the American people. That's the disconnect. Corporations and the way that a capitalist economy is, they're supposed to act everybody should act in their own self-interest. But political leaders,
I'm not saying that corporations are bad. Okay, that was not what I was trying to say. They've helped build America. I mean, most corporations, many older corporations, in fact, started very, very small with just a man or just a woman, and they've grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. That's a good thing. We're not going to complain about that. But I do get the whole shareholder thing and everything else. It's just a concern when, these interests start controlling the dialogue, the legislation, and other things from outer means. So,
I will say, with regards to the media filtering the message, one of the reasons that the media and the establishment is so up in arms about the president is because they cannot filter the message. In times past, this is really the first president that did not have his communications with the American public filtered. Maybe a little bit of Obama, because the internet was more ubiquitous, throughout Obama's term.
Right.
But Trump now was the first president who doesn't need the media to spread his message, and therefore they don't get to spin it, and they don't like that.
They don't like that.
They're largely cut out of the process in many circumstances, and they don't get to falsify the message the way that they want to falsify it in line with their liberal ideals, which is out of touch with most of America.
Now, I have a question, and I agree with that. Well out of touch with the most of America, very, very much so. But I do have a question about lobbyists. Now, President Barack Obama, I know you're running for Congress. President Barack Obama ran on this whole thing. We need to put an end to the lobby, the power of the lobby, and all of this. And what do we see? Really, I almost saw more lobby, if you will, which is a huge concern. But where do you stand on that kind of influence, as it relates to the U.S. Congress and the work that you'll be doing up in D.C.?
Well, I can tell you that I will be spending more of my time with regular people than I will be with lobbyists. And one of the problems with political leadership is they spend all their time listening to rich people and to lobbyists. They don't spend any time really listening to regular people. So no wonder their legislative decisions are wrong. They need to make time to talk to regular people. I don't think that big money should have anything more than their equivalent time share of how many people they represent. Right? So one man, one vote should equate to the same amount of mind share in whispering to a politician's ear. But that's not the way the system is now because of the whole, the infection of the system with cash.
Yeah, but that's good to know. Now, one more issue that I'd like to ask you about, immigration reform. We touched on that just a little bit before, putting America first and supporting Donald Trump and his agenda to put America first. Where do you stand on immigration reform, and in terms of those people who suddenly think that they're here, they should be legalized, receive citizenship, and also, visas like H-1B visas, workers who are here, specialized workers where employers are abusing the laws. They're using a lot of loopholes to bring in people. Where do you stand on a lot of these issues?
These are very important issues. And first I'll say that one of the platforms of my candidacy is to protect our Constitution. And that includes everything from freedom of speech, right to due process, right to privacy, right to bear arms. And it also includes the right to have a sovereign nation with a definable border.
Right.
Call it the fact that we have a border that's easily penetrated is just mind-boggling to me. It wouldn't take a lot, and of course we should absolutely have a border that is not easily crossable. So,
right.
With regard to immigration, I'm married. We're all immigrants at some point, right? Whether it's first, second, third generation.
We're talking legal immigration versus illegal immigration. There's a large distinction between the two that the media likes to blur that line. There is no blurring available. Legal, illegal laws.
One of the differences, so boiling back down to my race, the 3rd Congressional District in New York, my opponent does not believe there is a difference between a citizen and an illegal immigrant when it comes to working. So he believes that any illegal immigrant should be allowed to work wherever they want, which obviates the need for any kind of immigration restrictions, because we're not going to distinguish between citizens and non-citizens. Then any kind of immigration rules or restrictions or limits are completely unnecessary. So I believe that there's a difference between a citizen and somebody who's in this country illegally.
Yes, go ahead.
With regards to immigration, I look at it through an economic lens. So what I was going to say before is I'm married to an immigrant. My wife came to the United States as a Latin American immigrant when she was about 10 years old. She didn't speak English. She learned, she didn't get a check every month when she got here, and she didn't get housing, and she didn't get medical care. She came here with her mother, and they were both living, barely out of poverty, and they worked their way up, and they followed the rules, and she went through the process, and after about 10 years, she ultimately became an American citizen, and she learned to speak English. There's a right way and a wrong way to enter this country. And I will say that there's a billion people around the world who would like to come to the United States. We need to have a process in place. We need to have a framework that we adhere to. We can't just
have a process.
Well, it's not.
We just have to adhere to it.
That's right.
And then we have to close the loopholes which are being currently abused and manipulated by, I would say, politicians, other interests, as well as those people who want to come here. And of course, they're looking for opportunity, but they're not doing it the right way. Now, you say illegal immigrants. I say illegal aliens. They are not immigrants to our country, as I view it. They're alien. Yeah.
That's right.
But in any case, these illegal aliens, I don't believe that anybody, I don't even believe that you see them as bad people necessarily. They're just people who've made wrong choices.
Well, remember, there's billions of people who are depressed or distressed and have lost hope from wherever they live, and they'd like to come here.
Right.
We need to have the right process, but the process must be followed. The reason we have 11 or so U.S. consulates, or I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but we have 11 of them in Latin America, is for people to apply for citizenship or apply to come here to visit.
Absolutely.
That's the process that's in place. People who come to this country who show up at the border undocumented or illegally should be instantly turned back, and that would have avoided this entire problem with what you had with the children being separated. I'm not sure why when somebody comes to this country illegally, we don't just say no. Imagine if somebody comes to your house, you don't open the door and say, come on in, and then, fill out an application over the next 5 weeks while I feed you and house you. You say, get out of it. You say, no, you're not welcome. You say, go down and apply the right way. And that's the way that my family did it. It's the way that my wife did it. It's the right way to do it. So,
right.
But I look at immigration through the economic lens. There's a humanitarian aspect to it. There are people, and I would say that the top of the list is people in Yemen and South Sudan and other parts of Africa where there truly is genocide. If we're going to take people in for humanitarian reasons or for asylum purposes, there's a long list of countries that come ahead of really what we've been servicing out of convenience, which is much of Latin America. But what we have to, so from an economic point of view, we take in about 1 million legal immigrants every year, and who knows what the number of border crossers who come in illegally, tens to hundreds of thousands. We look at the wage growth in this country. We look at what's happened to the middle class and the 90-something million people who are out of the workforce. We do not have the capacity to absorb that many immigrants into this country anymore. We need to have immigration reform that includes a hard look at how many immigrants this economy can absorb without continuing to depress the wages of other working and middle-class Americans. Right. When you take 1 million people a year, you drive wages towards zero. And the only thing that prevents them from being at zero is our minimum wage laws. With 90-something million people out of work, don't you think, you see these men who show up on the streets looking for day work. They would take 3 cents an hour. They would take 5 cents an hour because it's better than where they came from. But we that's a poverty wage. We simply cannot absorb those people into the system, which is why we have to really figure out what's the right number. It's no longer 1 million. It's something much smaller than 1 million.
Well, I definitely do agree with that perspective. I view it from where I'm standing, from the viewers on the show. And let me just catch people up real quick. This is Dan Debono. He is running for the 3rd Congressional District in New York. He's talking to us about his platform for U.S. Congress. He's talking about many different issues, but right now we're talking about immigration. And the way many of our viewers here at the Erin Cruz Show and online view this is that, we just, like you said, we can't absorb, that many people trying to come here for better life. It's not that we don't want to allow for the potential for opportunity. But here's the deal. The numbers need to get capped. The caps should go down because, and like you said, there has to be a strong, objective look at how we can go about maximizing or minimizing and maximizing the entire process. Because I'll tell you, between the H-1B visas and then the other individuals that we bring here, it's a really big issue. For example, you have an H-1B visa person that comes here to have a specialized job. They can bring their wife. Mm-hmm. It goes out from there, and many of those people work towards then, after a certain period of time, working for and towards permanent residency, working towards then and for citizenship. And then we have chain migration, which then they bring family who bring family who bring family. And so it's not even just the people we let in, it's the people we let in who invite more people in. And it's just a butterfly effect, and it's a concern. It's a concern for many of the people who voted for me here in California. It's a huge issue. It's something where now, like you said, where are the jobs? We have people at McDonald's who are 40, 45, 50 working. Used to be a high school job, what you got part-time just to, make your way. So I think it's a large concern, but your idea, your plan is to say, let's really look at this. Let's dial in.
Let me tell you how the system is corrupt. Okay, the situation in America today is that wage growth has been stagnant on what they call a real basis, which is after accounting for government measured inflation. Right. And what that really means is we know the government statistics are doctored. Okay. Government understates the level of inflation on a regular basis. It's in their interest to do so. They make all kinds of crazy substitutions when making these quantifications. I don't think it's not far from the mainstream on the right to believe that the inflation statistics we hear are doctored. Inflation.
And then they're given to the media, which then are fully puffed out and made to look like some sort of pretty thing.
We know that the cost of living has gone up a lot more than 1.5% to 2% a year for the past 10 or 20 years. But even using those doctored low estimates, let's say the number is 2% a year. So what that means is the government steals 2% of your purchasing power every year. So over 10 years, you lose 20% plus some compounding. Over 20 years, you lose 45 to 50% of your purchasing power using that government statistic. In reality, if you believe inflation or the changes in the cost of living are higher than what the government is telling you, you're losing a lot more purchasing power. But even with that, wages have been, on average, flat for 20 years. And one of the reasons is that the way that the free market system is supposed to work is that there will be a job that needs to be filled. An employer will suggest that we'll put out an offer for that job. Say, Erin, I'll pay you, $11 an hour, which is the minimum wage here on Long Island. I'll pay you $11 an hour to do this job. And you may say, you know what? I have children who I need to take care of. I have a mother living with me. I can't, that's a poverty wage. No, I'd rather wait and sit back and make that employer raise the offer. Okay, right. So it's where supply and demand meet. Ultimately, if there's somebody else who steps up at that level, then the price will be set. But what's been happening in the United States is big corporate employers have gotten, I don't know how they've gotten it, but they have this sense of entitlement that they should have an unlimited supply of workers at minimum wage. There's no right, there's no constitutional right that the way the system is supposed to work is Americans should sit back and say, no, I will not accept a poverty wage. I will sit back and starve for 2 weeks so I can force you to raise that 11 to 12, 13, 14, a higher number. But what's been happening is big corporate America and their crony bought and paid for politicians, they then do an end run around the free market by saying, oh, Americans won't take these jobs. And the answer is no, Americans would take those jobs, but Americans won't take these jobs at poverty wages. But then the big corporate America, they say, we need to take in 100,000 people on H-1B visas, or we need 100,000 immigrants, and those people will accept poverty wages because it's better than where they came from. It's an end run around. It's not the way the system is supposed to work.
And I think that part of it too, you know, having the background that I have, is part of it is they're easy hires. It's difficult in that, you know, there's a visa process, but they also get a committed employee. They know that that person is going to work for them. I mean, on an H-1B visa, for example, they know that that person, they bring them in, that person's going to work for them. They're going to stay for that job. They're going to want and like that wage. And it's a secured situation. Whereas, you know, someone else, they may get that job, then get a better offer and go. I mean, that's another risk. There's a lot to it, and I understand it's completely complex. But, you know,
certainly that is possible. But I think more often than not that when you hear the phrase that Americans won't take these jobs, so we need to import.
Oh, that kind of dialogue. I do believe that Americans will do those jobs. Unfortunately, these corporations are abusing the legislation in place.
Americans are just too smart. They're not going to take a poverty job. They're not going to take a job in which they're committed to poverty. And it's not just jobs that you would often put in this category. We're talking about employees of American Airlines and Disney, right in Southern California, are paid so little. They're paid such poverty wages that they're still on government assistance and they're still living in poverty. Wages are too low. One of the contributors to that is excessive immigration. Right. And it includes both legal immigration, illegal immigration, as well as the visa, the H-1B and the H-1B visa program.
Several of the visa programs. Yeah. So we're very glad to hear that you're in support of closing those loopholes, capping, looking at the information behind some of the issues and coming down to the real numbers and the real information. We need to make those hard decisions to bring those caps down and to make reforms. Where do you stand on auditing the Fed?
Look, we need wage growth. And we're not, if we continue to do end run around the capitalist system of letting supply and demand meet by importing hundreds of thousands of workers in, wages will never rise, and we're going to lose our middle class democracy. The Fed. I think that the Fed.
I know it's a sticky question, but many people will want to know, so I ask.
I find the Fed has been one of the most destructive forces in America in history. The Fed has engineered a massive upward wealth transfer from the lower and the middle classes to big money special interests and the elites. It's something that if people really understood what had happened, they would be out in the streets. I firmly and strongly believe that the Fed should be audited. And I like to highlight it every opportunity I get. The Fed printed money out of thin air to hand to special interests. Money needed to be injected into the economy during, right in the throes of the credit crisis, and there was an unlimited number of ways that money could have come in. The money could have come in directly through the people. They could have written checks to you, to me, to every worker in this country. Instead, they chose to filter $4 trillion through big money. They gave the money, big money first. I can't think of something more insidious, more un-American, and more worthy of description of theft. So absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, we only have another minute or two here, and I just want to say, There's so much hyper around all these issues that come out, and a lot of people about the auditing the Fed or ending the Fed, auditing it especially, say that, oh, the American people can't handle the idea behind the truth about what's going on. I believe that the American people really want to know what's going on. They want to have the information. We live in a day and age where we should have that information, and good, strong decisions should be made. And that's why we want to hire people, patriots, not politicians, veterans who've seen the outside and have really worked to serve the American people in the U.S. Congress. Now, Dan, I want to do a little recap. If you could just let our viewers know your name, where you're running for Congress, and a little bit about your platform, and where they can find more information about your campaign in just like a minute or two, that would be wonderful.
Erin, thanks again. It's been wonderful being on the show. I'm Dan Debono, seeking office in the 3rd District of New York, which is the North Shore of Long Island, and Northeast Queens. And the key part of my platform is to strengthen the middle-class economy, which means increasing job opportunities and increasing wages. And the way that we're going to do it, which is what I learned over 20 years working in finance. We're going to do it by increasing competition among business. We're going to do it by continuing to deregulate, which is a process that the president started. And we're going to do it by fostering small business growth. These things together should help the middle class see upward pressure on their wages and more job opportunities. Other things I'm focused on are to keep us safe physically, which means maintaining an elite military. And I'm also focused on modernizing the infrastructure here in my district, which is primarily the highway system and the Long Island Railroad. And finally, I'm a big protector and proponent of the U.S. Constitution in every aspect. We need to defend it to the end. And the Constitution is under threat in many, many ways. Some of the stuff you read about what's happening on college campuses will just turn you sick. I'm reachable on the internet. I have a website. It's dandebono.com. Debono is the way you spell my last name. I'm on Twitter, and I'm pretty active. My handle is @DanDebono. We have a Facebook site, which is Dan Debono for Congress. And we also have a similarly named page or platform on Instagram. I generally respond to all comments, inquiries within 24 hours. I always tell people I recognize that I know nothing compared to what we all know together. So please give me your ideas, your feedback, your thoughts, and together we can help restore the American dream to what it once was.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, there you have it, folks. He is an American patriot, a family man. He loves his country. He wants to serve. Dan, thank you so much for being on the show. Hopefully you'll come up again on here and tell us and give us more of an update of what's going on specifically in your district and the race as we come up towards the general election. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Erin.
All right.
We will return to the Erin Cruz Show in just a moment.
We have had another edition of the Erin Cruz Show, which is just phenomenal. Thank you so much for those of you who joined us for all 3 hours. I know it's a long show, but we have a lot of information to share, a lot of strong candidates and patriots that we need to connect with and that we need to further connect throughout the election season. Please go ahead, like, share on Facebook, share on Twitter. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with your family and friends. This is the future of our nation in our hands, ladies and gentlemen. We are the solution to the problems that are in front of us. Now, please make sure you also remind people to tune in for next week's show. We already have a lineup. We have a couple of people who are going to be coming and talking with us that are running for the California State Assembly, and we have some patriots who are on the ground activists fighting every day. And you know what? We can't stop. We're just gaining momentum. If you have a friend, a patriot, a candidate who's running for office, and you want to hear them, send them our info. Connect them with me. You can go to Twitter. You can go to Real Erin Cruz. That's RealErinCruz. On Facebook, you can just search Erin Cruz. I should be able to pop up. Or you can go to my website, erincruz.com. All of our social media links are there. Make sure that you pass on that information to us. We want to get you the relevant information pertinent to your area. If you are out of state, you're not in California, we are still covering all of those other areas for candidates. If you have an issue that's going on and you have a patriot that needs a voice, send them to us. You know, we are here for you. This is all about the future of our republic and the United States of America. God bless each and every one of you. Take care of your families. Take care of your loved ones.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.